that conservation restriction tonight, so I just need your signature on that.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 12th, 2019 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen in the town of Milton to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town bylaw governing the wetlands. We have two orders of formality. One is that we tape the meeting, so we invite everyone to speak, to ask questions, to make comments. But please, A, use a microphone, and B, identify yourself. The second matter of formality is we introduce ourselves.
Judith Darrow Kemp.
My name is John Kiernan.
Hans Van Lingen.
Jerry Burke.
Alfred Doyle.
Ingrid Beatty. Wendy Godhope.
Steve Ivas, Conservation Agent.
Kathy Bowen.
And we're going to have a slight adjustment to the agenda. We're going to take number 6 first. That's a conservation restriction discussion at 175 Governor Stoughton Lane. That is a matter in which I have historically recused myself, and I shall do so again tonight.
You good to go? We're after this.
Thank you, John. Good evening. Just for the general public who's listening tonight, this is Town Farm, otherwise known as the Poor Farm. A couple of other names, Governor Stoughton Lane. So 32 acres. It was sold by the selectmen 4 or 5 years ago, and now 32 houses are going on it. And I believe we have a map. We do? Good. In connection with this, there will be 2 good-sized portions of land. As you come in the drive on the left-hand side, you want to show Steve Unquity Road on the left, just to let people know.
Can you speak in the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at Unquity Road, so people who are watching can get their bearings.
Unquity is here.
That's right. And I think we talked about last time, this is actually part of the Blue Hills Reservation. So the developers, Pulte, actually got permission to put the road in from Unquity. So it crosses over a little bit of the reservation slightly, and then into this development of Town Farm. And on both sides, there are 2 significant areas of open space. These, in agreement with the developer, Pulte, will be in a permanent conservation easement. And I'd like to invite John Flynn up, if our town council, just to explain a little more. People have questions about what it means to be in a permanent conservation easement. Hi, John. You can identify yourself, even though I did.
John Flynn, I'm an attorney with Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, Lehane, and Quincy. I am town council for Milton.
I know the commission is involved with this conservation easement. I just wanted to ask you, if you could, again, for the general public who's listening, explain what it means to be in the easement, what activities will be allowed, and what is prohibited, just in kind of general terms, John?
What was that? Page 6. Got it.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, and members of the public, what is happening here is that the developer, Pulte, has been required to grant to the town of Milton a conservation restriction on the parcels that you identified, parcels 1 and 2. And the purpose of the conservation restriction is primarily to limit development on the property and to limit the activities essentially to passive recreation. So, for example, there can be no building on it, no construction on it, no industrial use, no commercial use, no heavy equipment. It's really intended to do to the best of our ability to preserve the land in its natural state, both for environmental and ethics. And this development is a so-called cluster development, where in return for slightly higher the density that would normally be allowed, the grantor is required to give to the town a conservation restriction like this. It's a way of dedicating open space, but this in particular is specifically for environmental protection as opposed to, say, a general open space or park or something. And the permitted uses are several, but they're basically, well, actually, for emphasis, the state prefers and the town follows that process to say what's prohibited first and then what is permitted. In permitted uses are anything that involves construction, basically alteration of the land for anything, a building, a pool, you name it. You can't really alter the land without permission from the Conservation Commission, and historically, very little permission is given for activities like that. And it even gets specific, though. You can't, there's a prohibition on on those restricted areas of destroying vegetation, altering vegetation, cutting trees, grading, loaming, parking of motor vehicles, obviously, use of motor vehicles, mining, excavating, dredging, soil, loam, etc. Use of any recreational vehicles, non-motorized, that aren't pedestrian in nature. So it's a fairly broad prohibition, but with a good reason. Obviously, it's a conservation restriction. The purpose is to conserve land. So
And the allowed functions on it, John, would be,
vegetation management, removal of non-native or invasive species, composting with the approval of the Conservation Commission, anything that would improve wildlife habitat, investigation of archaeological conditions or historical conditions.
and I think we discussed with last time and the time before, public access.
Yes.
So to what extent will there be people allowed to walk in here, or what permitted uses will there be for the public?
The large open areas are for public access within the limits of the restriction, but there is a narrow parcel 2 there at the bottom that the pointer is on, is restricted access there. It's called on the plan,
I see where it says no pedestrian access?
yes, that's it. It's at the bottom, what you're looking at, it's like an inverted L, if you will, or a inverted protractor, or a triangle, but no pedestrian access, so that's limited open space. But the rest, it's really intended to be public access, again, within the limits of the conservation restrictions. So basically,
Then how does a public access if they
Is that part of the parcel? Is that part of the CR parcel? That the limited,
yes, it's part
that
of
is
the,
part of the conveyance?
Yes, it is.
yes.
Okay.
So it isn't open to the public because
is
it's
part of the
behind the
rules.
houses directly.
Okay.
It's
So.
intended to be a
this was-
buffer, in effect,
Yeah, for the
the neighbors.
residents.
Yes, yes. So basically, the permitted activities are anything that makes sense from a nature or a conservation point of view, for removal of invasive species, anything that promotes either vegetation or wildlife habitat. And other than that, it's really just passive use. No construction, no vehicles, even no heavy recreational,
Yeah, no
no
motorized,
yeah.
no
So
motorized
it's
vehicles.
literally passive. I mean, it's,
I know historically, people have walked through this area.
Yes.
So I know there are some paths existing. And my understanding is the homeowners will still own this property. It isn't like the Blue Hills. Is that right, John? It's not like the taxpayers of Milton do not own this. The homeowners association will own it.
Yes.
But the public will have access
Correct.
to it. Okay.
correct.
And that's only during daylight hours, is that right?
Yes. And there are separate recorded documents that will address maintenance of and everything, but that's correct, yes. It's still part of the owned open space, if you will, for the condominium concept.
That's part of the HOA requirement.
Yeah, exactly, correct, yes.
One other question, are there any conditions that carried from the original owner in perpetuity? Or are, so before this was conveyed and before the town took ownership of it, were there any permanent requirements in the deed that
No.
carried that would apply?
No.
So this is the only restriction that exists on the
Well, there, technically, no, there'll be homeowners' documents, and there'll also be a declaration of restrictive covenants broadly. But this is primarily directed to conservation, but
The
there'll
CR.
at least three sources of restrictions: the conservation restriction, the declaration of, by the homeowners, and a declaration of restrictive covenants.
Okay.
Actually, we didn't acquire the property by deed, we acquired it under the will of William Stoughton back in 1701.
That's
And
the-
it's a very short provision for the benefit of the poor of Milton.
Yes.
So there are no restrictions.
There was
other
no
than-
additional language in that?
Right.
Okay.
That was the only
my
restriction, just for the poor. And in order to sell this property, the town of Milton had to go to court because, in effect, the town was varying the terms of the trust. The property is held in trust with the selectmen as trustees. In order to sell that, we had to get approval from the Attorney General in the probate court because the Latin word is si pre, it means you're departing from the terms of the
Yes.
trust. But
But that doesn't
that was
carry.
the only restriction to answer
Okay.
your question.
Yes, that was
Jerry,
my
you have a
question.
question?
Did, Mr. Flynn, a couple of questions. One, did the town receive a two-thirds vote of the legislature under Article 97?
No, didn't need it.
You have a legal opinion on file that it was not necessary?
Well, the court ruled that we could do this. so
Okay.
The probate court, yes.
All right. Now, in the future, if there's going to be any change to that, is that in the control of the homeowners association solely?
When you say change, Jerry, what do you mean by that?
If they decide not to keep it as conservation land? Are you saying that the deeds are restrictive enough that they can, if they go to court for change in that
Would a subsequent
status?
change?
Well,
Any subsequent change, any future change?
under Massachusetts law, where this is held by conservation restriction, you would need approval of the
So
Yeah,
even
they cannot do
even
that.
though it's still in private hands, you're saying that Article 97 would kick in the future?
well, because it's granted to the, conservation restriction is granted to the town, that would kick in Massachusetts
That would
law.
kick in
Yes.
Article 97?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all
Jerry,
right.
tell us what Article 97 is. I don't know.
Article 97 is the conservation land, anything that's used for parkland, conservation land. Any subsequent change in that use requires a two-thirds vote of both legislatures under Article 97 of the Constitution. Thank you. Now, as a more mundane thing, where is the public access to the conservation land?
I had the same question.
And does it require them to go over private property at any time?
There's Exhibit C here that says it will show it, but there is no Exhibit C.
Steve, do you want to show on the map this
Yes.
commission is? So here's the road.
CCR land is here. There's Uncudy Road, and then to the east of Uncudy Road, north being to the top of the plan here. This is all DCR Blue Hills Reservation land, okay? There is a utility easement for water line right through here. That's used presently for, as part of a trail for people from the Blue Hills Reservation out in here. Okay, so this is the Pulte land right here. It's actually not down at Uncudy. And here's their roadway that's been built through DCR property. You see, the first portion of the roadway is actually on DCR property. They had to get a separate permit, or sets of permits for that. So the access is anywhere along this line here, for the entire westerly line of the property.
And Steve, do the outline of each parcel, one.
Certainly. I can't see what the number is, but there's a parcel to the northwest of the site, and that's up in here, and it's here, and then it goes behind some house lots here, works all the way over to the roadway, actually, so the roadway would be an access point, unless, I think it does, goes all the way to the roadway, comes back behind these three properties here, and then goes back along the roadway. Then once you cross the roadway to the southerly, all the way along the DCR property here on the westerly line, then the southerly line of the site here, right up until where it becomes the 40-foot wide easement. And then it goes due north right up to the roadway. So along the roadway itself is public access as well. Please be aware that this general area is wet during the springtime, very wet in the springtime, as is this general area up here. The open space does continue along and up, along here. I'm just trying to move let me see if I can move this further over.
That's okay.
it-
We've walked this many times, Arthur and, Ingrid, those of us.
It continues along the southerly and the easterly limit of the project, but residential or recreational access is not allowed in that short 40-foot wide easement area.
Now, the other thing, we should remember is on both of these parcels, there's a strong likelihood that there's a vernal pool on each
Here,
one.
right in here, this area, and right up in here,
And
this
they
area.
have not been certified yet.
Right.
When we sign this conservation restriction, what's also talked about in here is a baseline report. And that report will not be completed until the 1st of August. So we have April, May, June, July, 4 months to do it correctly. And that baseline report will describe the land as it's given to us, what that land looks like. And you remember, Arthur, as we were walking through here so many times, we've had some studies of what was on that site going back 4 years, what plants were on the site, what the archaeology had been that was discovered, that sort of thing. So we'll put that baseline report together. Steve is working on it mainly. Thanks, Steve. And that report will then go along with this restriction. So if there's any question of a change in the property, we can say, well, this is what it looked like, so it shouldn't deviate from that, except as would happen naturally.
And to add to that, in the special permit itself, page 73, there's a land management section that requires that the homeowners association hire an arborist every 3 years to look at the open space property, to make recommendations on the open space areas. Okay, which is, I think is a very, very good thing to do.
Good.
Have we hired someone to go through the process of getting those vernal pools certified?
I believe Steve is qualified to do that. Is
Yes,
that right,
I have done
Steve?
many.
Okay.
About when do you think you'd have that information, Steve?
By the mid of April, mid-April.
Great.
In terms of the timeline, is that problematic for the project to not be able to convey the land, or
No.
are you aware of any issues they have? I mean, obviously you don't represent them, but, is the expectation that we accept the land, or we accept the CR sooner than that, or is it?
This will go on record before the lots are conveyed. The baseline report that the chair referred to is incorporated by reference, so they'll be on notice that,
Okay,
but they'll have, this will be on record when they buy the property, so they'll know about this.
Okay.
In fact, their
I'm
first,
talking about the acceptance of this, so in order to have the final signatures on this, that baseline report will have to be completed and attached?
no,
Oh, it will not?
No.
That's my question.
No, that's,
It follows after.
yes, I'll read the language to you, but it's, on pages 2 and 3, it talks about the baseline report, and then a provision identified the A copy of the baseline report shall be on file in the office of the Town of Milton Planning Board, and it earlier said that it would be completed by August 1st of 2019. So they're on notice that,
Okay, so there is a timeframe associated.
yes, and it makes sense logically, because the way this came down, obviously it's winter now, and you want to.
Yes, they would have had to have done it last year.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
You don't want to do it with snow, you want to have, and by the way, the special permit requires a fairly detailed narrative and photographic,
Okay.
photographic evidence of what the condition of the property is that will become your baseline. So it's well thought out, actually, by the planning board, and anyone who buys the property is on notice that that's part of the deal. So,
excellent.
Any other questions from the commissioner? Wendy, are you satisfied that you've been able, I know, read it over and understand and such? Yeah.
I am, yes, thank you.
Are there any questions from the abutters or from the general public? Seeing none. John, do we have to take two separate votes on this? One to approve the terms of the restriction and one to accept it?
No, one vote.
One
Just
vote.
to approve it and the members decide. One vote would do well.
Okay.
Before you do, I'd just like to mention that the timing of this was such that in order to keep this process flowing, it was kind of a tight time frame, and your members should be aware that you and Steve Ivers and Kathy Bowen were really a terrific help in pulling this together, because when I first looked like it was one of those old bleep moments, but it all came together, and the special permit was well thought out, so it helped us craft and edit this document, but
Good.
you and your colleagues really
Well, good.
deserve a lot of credit for
I
turning
think
it.
if we're going to do it, we should do it right, so, and I am pleased that the public has the access that we do, because when you go to the Blue Hills nowadays, even during the week and on the weekends, my goodness, the parking lots are full, so people are looking for, places to go and what we know about being able to be in nature, so it is important to get this done. So a motion to accept the grant by the Conservation Commission and the particular conservation restriction.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, okay, you've done it. Thank you, John.
Now, I have 4 signature copies here, if you prefer, and I just distribute them.
Whatever's best.
The reason there are 4 is one gets recorded.
Okay.
One's for us, one for the developer, and one for the state. Who will-
So we signed 4 copies of this.
Yes. And it's on page 16, and hopefully the sticky stays on it.
That's for the notarization, Judy.
Who's notarizing? Signatures. Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kathy is.
okay.
I also should mention that Ms. Bowen generously came in off time to notarize your signatures, so this could move on.
The restrictions on the restrictions, can you walk in the vernal pools first? This doesn't
It's
apply
really
in
no
the
different than
springtime?
Blue Hills, so
Thanks, Jim.
have some faith in the public.
Also, ideally, the future owners will consider themselves stewards of the land. so.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, the maintenance, you said the maintenance and
It's falls under
upkeep is on the
PHOA.
homeowners association.
It is.
Items 1 and 2.
And we did a number one where we made sure so that the existing meadows would be kept as meadows. So those
No.
that it would be
Are there more copies coming?
There should be 4.
4 altogether.
as part of the list.
So there were 3 more places to sign.
Counties file their own, so they don't count it once
In
in
that,
for this.
there were 3 more places to sign
Like
in
the real
that.
estate companies.
Yeah.
2 minutes, and just
Only one place to.
In that section, it's been a non-issue for something years.
Did you sign?
I only signed at the one place that
They
was
did too.
indicated. Are there,
Are there
there
3
was-
more
are there-
copies coming along?
It should be.
or are there,
Just one place on
All-
page 16 is where the
Feels a
members
little bit
sign.
like,
Yeah.
pass the mashed potatoes. kind of thing. Keep-
Yeah.
Keep them moving.
we're waiting for the additional 3 to, there we go.
I'll go down there and check to make sure.
Oh, John, yeah, can you come in and
It's not quite a stack of papers you have there. It's quite a stack of papers you have there. I have the same. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Oh, God, if the nun could see my penmanship now. Is that number 4?
There should be
And Madam Chairman,
One more, right?
should be one more.
if people would like to take a look
Giving
at the
these one?
site,
Those are 2 and 3. There were 3 altogether.
Should be 4.
on an aerial photograph, there's another,
Somebody kept one?
there's another view behind you, Madam Chairman. That's an aerial photograph created today by Town of Milton GISP, right here. The red are the lots. The white lines are 5-foot contours. The 1-foot contours are too close together to see it. But that tells you a little bit more about the site. You can see that this is a flat area here, which is where our wetland is.
Yes,
And up in here is another flat area, right there.
yes.
Again, another wetland area. And then there's the hillside going up right like that.
Here is that elusive last one.
And it's called Wood Lot Drive. That's the roadway that actually comes through the DCR property. You see, here it is.
Because originally it was used as a woodlot. My understanding is
correct.
that's how they were helping the poor. They let them go in there and cut down trees for firewood in the wintertime. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks so much.
Madam Chair, thank you for moving this along, and thank you to the proponents of items 1 through 5 for their patience.
Excellent. Thanks, John, for
Appreciate it.
coming in.
Thanks for coming in, John.
Welcome. Nice to meet you, Steve.
Good to
Good night,
Night.
everyone.
a lot of phone conversations.
Kathy, you want to tell John he's
I
welcome
will.
to come back in?
Let's see.
It's not an easy site to walk. There's some
So, Wendy?
sections that are such drop-off, too. Not at all easy.
This too?
It varies greatly, doesn't it?
But worth the walk.
But worth
Thanks, Sean. Sorry.
And one will walk in there with care,
it. Yes.
both sides.
Will we be receiving the HOA language as well,
Yes,
when it gets finalized?
yes.
And that's something we approve as well?
Right.
Okay.
It will be interesting to see over time which roads are developed.
Will do. Yes, yeah. There it comes.
Could you be against all of exhibits?
Mr. Garcia, is C5 the proper one to put up maybe on the screen?
Well, we have more conservation land in Milton now, John, in your absence.
Very
so.
good,
Yeah, see what we can do without you?
pretty good.
Have to request the chairman.
All right, folks, next on the agenda is number 1, request for extension of order of conditions, 1904 Canton Avenue. Hi, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name, for the record, is Christopher Garcia with Garcia, Gillespie, and D'Souza. We're consulting engineers. We're the civil engineer on the project.
On the what?
On the project.
What is the
So
project?
the project is, it's DEP file number 46-0500. It's the Trailside Museum to reconstruct the otter pond. So we were in front of the board in May of 2016. We had an order of condition issued. At that time, the DCR did not have the funding for the project. So that's why we are here today to ask for an extension on the order of conditions that was issued in 2016. DCR does have the funding now to complete the project, so there's a general contractor on board, and they will move forward with the work. So you had two documents come into the commission. One was from DCR in the middle of February requesting the extension. And then as part, in the time since the original hearing, we have made some minor changes to the plan. There has been no changes in the scope of work or the limit of work. The changes to the plan were revisions of details, corrections in some things, but the overall limit of work has not changed. Also, within that 3-year period, DCR was able to get some funds, so they had done a portion of the gravity sewer that was a part of the original scope. So we had provided a document dated March 17th, but I believe you had it on Monday, that outlined all the changes on the drawings. Again, I believe it's minor in changes. There's no scope of work change. As part of these changes, we adjusted the scale of the drawing, made it larger so it's easier to read for the contractor, and again, just made some minor detail changes.
And Mr. Chairman, I agree with all of those statements. I've looked at the detail.
Perfect. Well, it was a good plan in 2016, and hopefully it remains a good
goes
plan.
through.
I do have a question
Yes.
for you, though, and I understand, in looking at the March 7th letter, I understand you went through all the changes, and they appear to be minor, but I had a couple of questions. Am I correct that the implementation of the sewer along Blue Hill Avenue took out some of the original planned construction? It's already been done.
It's already been complete. However, our plan had just shown a gravity sewer beginning just, might be C4. Is it
C4?
Can I approach the screen? and
Sure, please do.
Point it out?
Please do.
It's
Bring the
kinda
mic
difficult.
with you.
I don't have a pointer.
Take one of the handheld microphones, please. There you go.
Could you just show where Canton Avenue is on that map, so people will
Well, it's
get
Blue
there?
Hill Avenue.
Well,
Blue Hill.
it kind of got blown up in scale, but the main road is the lower part of the plan. So on our original documents in 2016, there was a gravity sewer that was a dark line because that was proposed new construction.
Going from the museum building itself?
Going from this manhole, we weren't connecting to the museum is connected to that portion of that existing line that we were going to reconstruct.
Okay.
That was all shown on the original 2016 plan. On this,
Show people where the museum itself is, and then where
the building is down in this location.
Yeah.
That's the existing building. That had connected to an existing gravity sewer that went out to the street. So our original plan, because we were adding the otter house that's going to house the otter during the evenings and whatnot, there is a sink in that structure. So we have a force main that was then going to go by gravity around the south side of the existing building and connect to the existing sewer line. So on these new plans, it's shown as light. We changed it from a dark line to a light line because it's already since been installed.
So in the, I was leading up to my question, because in the drawing C5 site utility plan, your fourth bullet says revised sewer pipe and material to reflect the force main pipe. That's what confused me, because I didn't know there was a force main, but it's leading from the Otter House to the
Yes,
manhole.
and one of the changes was this designation FM wasn't on the original plan of 2016. It had always been a force main, but we had just changed the designation to say FM, but it was always part of that original 2016 plan. There's a small lift station here to deal with this plumbing in the new building, and then it connects to the existing gravity line.
All right, but the rest of it, the main line is all gravity.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's good.
It is a sewer line, not a storm water runoff.
Dedicated sewer.
Okay.
Not for mine.
And did you say the order? Is this
Well,
for one
I think
order?
there's one now, but I believe there was plans for 2 or 3.
Right, I think there were 3 at one
I
point.
don't think there's
That hasn't
any right
changed.
A
now.
new house for every order.
You may have moved it, right?
So one order, it's not a cluster development.
2020 campaign slogan, Joe.
It's a beloved.
So November 4 is your completion?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, so it'll go through the summer, and we expect to be done this year.
Okay,
Yep, and
Good.
that funding's all in place, so it's got
excellent.
moving
That was
forward.
my next question. So we're all
And,
set.
and in fact, Mr. Chairman, you have a schedule done by the contractor that we
I
received.
received that, I did. Thank you very much for that.
So currently, the Otters don't have any house to go to at night. So now they will have a little shed to go into?
Correct, and that was part of the original plan in 2016.
And the only problem I have, when I looked it over this time, is some of your plantings are not native. They're japonica instead of native species.
Okay,
Could you look that over? Because there are some that could easily be replaced, and we really encourage native species, particularly in a location like this.
we're not, I
You know,
will
any-
definitely review that with the
Yeah,
landscape
review
architect.
that, yeah, that easily could be replaced. I saw like Monarda could have been, can be added, you know, bee balm, which is fabulous for butterflies, you know, easy stuff like that. If you could review that,
Well, do you want to review, or do you want to make it all native species?
make it all native species. It's not a burden. It
Okay.
really would not be.
Yep.
Okay.
Is
That would be
that
a
something
condition.
we could issue through the agent and have them review, or would you need to come back?
Yes,
to
and
the
we can,
board?
we can
Fine.
vote an extension conditional upon receipt of a landscape plan that includes native species.
Yes.
And just so you, and I'm sure you do know this, but our usual, and I refer to them as boilerplate conditions, are, include that the contractor has to store its equipment and refuel its equipment outside of our buffer zone. I don't think that's an issue because you've got a pretty large parking lot in the area. But
Yep.
just, if you could inform the contractor of that provision, it would be very helpful to us.
Not to be picky, but the plan will include the landscape plan, which will restrict to all native species.
Yes,
Yes,
That's-
yes.
right.
And Mr. Chairman, I was out on site with the contractor recently and noted that 100-foot away from any wetland resource with heavy equipment, okay?
Perfect.
So I've been on the site with the contractor already,
That's good.
Good.
which is very helpful, and hope to be on site next week again to inspect erosion controls when they're put in.
Good. When do you start? Or when can you start?
They're just going through the permitting process now, so they're going to start in the next few weeks.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners?
Where will the otters come from? Do you know?
They're not native.
Do not.
What is it? They're in the Neponset River, so I was
We
wondering.
could talk about how otters procreate if you'd like to. On a sidebar, how's that?
We'll be interested in seeing them at any rate.
All right. Are there any questions from abutters or members of the public? Comments or suggestions? Hearing none, is there a motion to extend the order of conditions that was issued in May of 2016 with the special conditions that we've already mentioned?
So moved.
And accept the
Second.
plan?
Yes, that's one of the,
Right.
right. I was pointing at you so that you could recite the additional provisions. One
Right.
is the acceptance of the landscaping plan to include
Right.
all native species.
Right.
And the second, to inform the contractor that we require that the equipment be stored overnight and refueled outside of our buffer zone. That's it?
So
Is there a
moved.
second?
Good.
I second,
Any
yes.
discussion? All in favor? All right, unanimous. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming in. Sure.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 2, and that is notice of intent, 156 Forbes Road. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Mary Rimmer, Rimmer Environmental Consulting, representing Michael Moore, who's the property owner at 156 Forbes Road.
Good evening.
Good evening, Michael Fryermore.
Thank you. I think we're going to be loading the plan, is that, okay.
Hopefully.
So just to orient you, this is a property at the end of Forbes Road, right before you get to the DCR property, and it borders on the Neponset River,
Estuary,
the estuary.
estuary,
Not the river itself?
correct.
Okay, we've identified riverfront area on the property,
Yeah.
so.
That's the
Actually,
river.
well, it's formerly the estuary because,
It's the blue line.
Because, just because?
no, because it's both freshwater and it's saline, and the two mix. And until it takes the curve, then it goes out to the Monson,
Oh,
the river itself.
but for riverfront
Yeah,
purposes,
It's
it's still
riverfront,
river.
right.
It's a river.
Technicalities, take it, don't confuse us with
It is,
too much data.
it narrows down just beyond this site. So the
Several
project,
of us have been to the property on a
we've been
couple
for
of
previous
occasions.
filings, exactly.
Yes.
And,
Many times.
Many
Oh,
times.
Many times.
Not just for this property, there's other
other
properties there.
properties
so-
there.
That's true.
Good point.
We've got half the plan.
What happened to the funicular?
It's running,
Is it? You don't hear it, do you?
Sure.
or see it.
I don't know why it's only half the plan.
What's that?
That's very strange. Oh, there we go. Better, okay. Make it a little larger. How's that, Mary?
Just with respect to the plan,
Is that appropriate, Mary? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is,
So this is the proposed carriage house here. It's 32 by 50 with a small deck off the back here as well. And some porous pavers. None of this detail shows up on this plan, the way it's faded out a little bit, but these porous pavers in the front here. This is the existing driveway that goes to the existing garage here. And so we've got off-site Neponset River here. There's a wetland boundary here. This is the 100-foot buffer zone to that wetland boundary. So the work is outside of the 100-foot.
wait a minute, how about, one of the things I noticed in the plan, that there's no line from here.
Right. So
What's
I'll
inside
talk
the
about that as well. So there's a 100-foot riverfront boundary and a 200-foot riverfront boundary. So the resource that we're in is the 100-foot, the 200-foot riverfront area right here. There is a channel that discharges from a catch basin right at the end of Forbes Road. And this is the northern, we'll call it north anyway, it's not exactly north on this plan, but the closest bank to the project site has been flagged right here. The reason I did not add a buffer zone to this is because this is an upgradient channel. There's no BVW along it, bordering vegetated wetland, and it doesn't derive from another wetland up here. So it's entirely an upgradient channel that becomes non-jurisdictional. under
We
the-
think it's
under the-
jurisdictional under the town bylaw, and
I-
we've already designated that because we've been on the site before. So
Right.
to us, that's jurisdictional.
That's fine. Since I didn't participate in these previous hearings, I'm going by what my experience says, and I didn't find any difference in the definition of a stream under your local bylaw. Then it directly references the State Wetland Protection Act. So I couldn't find any justification under their bylaw. Nonetheless, it's been delineated, it's shown here. If that would be considered to be jurisdictional, you'd have this work would be in the buffer zone to that as well. So I don't know if you want to discuss that issue further, but
No, it's jurisdictional anyway, but we'd like to see it on the plan.
the issue of whether or not this is a jurisdictional stream.
No, the 100-foot and the 25-foot line. just so we can see like the crosshatching of where those jurisdictional lines are.
Right.
It's not going to make a difference jurisdictionally because it's in our jurisdiction of the riverfront.
Exactly, right, you're,
So it's a fight we don't need to have.
exactly.
But we've
That's
already
fine.
had the
We can
fight,
certainly
so-
add those separate,
That
those
would be great.
distances
That would be
onto the
perfect.
plan. I understand what you're saying now. So we also showing an erosion control barrier around the limit of work here. This area where the construction is proposed is presently lawn. There's no vegetation that needs to be cleared. It's very flat. There's very little grading that's required. As I mentioned, infiltration would be on the side of the structure. And I think that's it.
What about, we've had some experience here, and this slope is actually pretty steep. I mean, it's probably an 8-foot drop from here to here.
Just beyond the property line. So it doesn't drop off right there. I think it shows a little bit better on this one.
I'm just wondering, do you have any kind of, I don't know how deep your footing goes here, if you're having a foundation? That's
it'll be
going to be tough to hold that slope.
Well, it's back off the slope. Probably can see it better on
This
there. It's
plan
going to be
here, it's generally sloping to the northeast
Okay.
in this direction here. And so these are 2-foot contours here and a 20-scale plan. So it's only between the edge of the building and the property line is about 20 feet, and it's dropping maybe
4 feet?
3 to 4 feet right there, yep.
Okay. I know we had some issues, but admittedly, closer to the street, coming towards me.
Gets a little steeper definitely
It
up here.
does,
And there's an
right.
old stone, there's a retaining wall right here
Yes.
and a stone edge along the edge of the driveway as well. So
So
this
what
particular
if-
area is relatively flat where this is proposed.
So how deep,
It'll be a
first of all,
four-
do you have a foundation? And secondly, if not, what are your footings?
There'll be a 4-foot
4-foot
frost
footing.
wall.
With the slab, it'll be drive under, so it'll be garage below with residential above.
Yeah, and I know you don't have the history of it, but this started with a barn, then that was taken off, then it was a shed that was very small. And now that's a pretty sizable, 52 feet by 30 feet.
It's 38 by,
50 by 32, 50 by 32.
yes, 50 by 32.
Well, Could you please define carriage house for us, for the record, please?
I'm going to throw that over to Mike.
Could you please define carriage house for us?
I'm not sure exactly the definition, but my understanding it's a structure that has living space in it. I'm not sure exactly what it
Is it going to be a residence of some sort, a rental property or an in-law
an
apartment?
in-law apartment.
And are they going to be, you said there's going to be parking?
Yeah.
Under this?
I have some plans here if you care.
It's essentially a drive under with apartment above.
That's the carriage house.
Michael, you'd know this more than I would. Is that a planning board issue? I mean, do you need a subdivision for a
No,
second home?
so my in-laws are moving into it. I've talked to the planning board about this. It's not a zoning issue.
Okay. That's an honest question, I don't know.
No, I mean, I asked the question with the commissioner and,
So this comes in as an in-law exemption.
correct,
Is there plumbing in the building?
there will be.
And why is it within the 200-foot riverfront or estuary front? Why isn't it away from the 200-foot?
So that's the driveway that's accessing the property, so that there's no other, it's as far away outside of the riverfront area as it could get.
You couldn't pull it forward to get it away from the 200-foot
Well,
buffer?
the problem is you still have to be able to access the existing garage in the existing house and make that turn. So there isn't room to pull
You're
it
almost
further
completely
forward.
within the 200-foot.
Right. So, but we are within the 200-foot, we are under the thresholds for riverfront area, for the alteration of riverfront area. We're outside of the 100-foot. We're under the 10%, well under. So I think, I'm not sure if you remember the site, but this is the...
I've been there probably 4 or 5 times.
Oh, okay, so it's right off the end of the driveway?
Yes,
the
yeah.
existing driveway.
Yes.
Are you hooked up to town sewer? Or is-
Yes.
Okay.
It's a low-pressure line.
Oh, can I ask a question, Mary? The area where it says pavers,
Yes.
how much is that? Is that like 8 feet or so?
About 8 feet.
Yeah, so 25 is one that apply to this is what's called the outer riparian, 200.
And how many stories?
2.
Yeah.
2 on a slab.
2 stories, yeah. Slab, first floor, second floor.
The garage being the first one.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the garage is underground.
No,
Garage is the first
on
floor.
grade,
It's on grade.
yes. Drive right in off the driveway.
See, I thought an in-law apartment had to be attached to the house. Did that get changed at some time?
I'd have to ask the building commissioner about that.
All right, well, I think we've got at least, and then you've been there, but not as many times as we have. You have not. Wendy has not.
Have you been there?
I have not.
So I think we
So-
should schedule a site visit.
Yeah, just one other question. In terms of the limit of work, it's all grass. There's no trees being removed, there's no anything. It's all existing lawn, maintained as lawn,
Wow.
no change.
Not even really long.
I put some loam down and some hayseed to keep the weeds out of the rest of the garden until this part of the project gets finished. It's mowed, it's not, I wouldn't call it lawn, but it's grass that gets...
Grass. Okay, so,
Compacted in that area,
okay,
so
so you're not,
trying to seed it.
you're not affecting, any stabilization or trees within the road front? Okay, that was my question.
What are your construction plans? I'm thinking of time, and we could have a site walk pretty quickly, but there's still a lot of snow on the ground, and we might want to wait a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, we have one scheduled for Saturday morning, this coming Saturday morning, the 16th, at 8 o'clock. You made that last month for 1387 Brush Hill. So you have one item on the sidewalk for Saturday already, just to let you know.
What's the number?
1387?
Avenue A, that,
3047, 1347?
Thank you, whatever the
Avenue
number
B,
is.
Avenue A.
Avenue
It's
A.
right where A and B split.
Yes, right, okay.
Yes.
So
You already have that scheduled
Yeah, with all the snow though. it's-
from last meeting. However, we're going to get a rain on Friday. Heavy rain is scheduled, I heard just tonight, for Friday, this coming Friday.
What is the
Get rid of some
30th, what is
snow.
the 30th like? I could
There's a
do
lot
the
of snow, I
30th.
don't know if that's gonna get rid of all of it.
Is Saturday the 30th possible? Then it would be definitely
Gone.
gone.
Right.
30th is okay with me. Everybody? Yeah, Hans, everybody? Is that okay? You can be there? All right. Mary, what we do is we generally meet at 8 in the morning. I don't care if we start there or we finish there. We're going back to, I know we scheduled one for the 16th, but.
You
we went-
scheduled it, I watched the meeting of last month,
But we went there.
but I'm pretty sure you scheduled a meeting
We did.
for there
schedule
because you
some.
didn't.
But I think we moved off that date. You're talking about the sidewalk that we recently did?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's where we were.
Yeah.
and that was a public meeting. Did we schedule
Yeah.
it then?
No,
I know
did
we
not
had,
schedule
I
a
know we
meeting
had
then.
one. Marion, do you remember?
Possibly this is a different application.
It is. It is a different
It's
application.
at Avenue A and B, but it's a lot, which has to do a lot of work. I'm not sure, because I have not.
Oh, I know. We were going back for the Hack property, Mr. Hack.
Yes, and
Yes.
maybe that's what.
That's what it is. So it's not
It
the,
was the Hack property, that's
Oh,
correct.
okay, so it's not the drainage system.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so it's Mr. Hack. Okay.
Maybe that could get changed to the 30th as well, just for efficiency.
Sure.
Check with that, Steve, and see.
Happy to. Yes.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So we'll make it the 30th, Saturday morning, and does anybody care if we start in East Milton or West Milton? Doesn't matter to me. So we'll start with you. Okay, that would be 8 o'clock at your house? Perfect.
And then your continued hearing would be when? Public hearing?
That is
Yeah,
a
it is a
public
public
hearing.
You would continue public hearing.
Right, but I'm not suggesting we'd vote, we may have more questions upon the site. So our next one would be the second Tuesday of April.
Okay.
And Steve, do you have the date?
I believe it's the 11th, but that's just from my head. Hang on, and I'll give you the date in a moment.
Just a second. John, procedurally, do we
It's
talk
the
to the
9th.
planning board and the zoning board
Yeah, we can, yeah. We try to coordinate with all
To
those.
define what the in-law apartment is?
So no sidewalk this summer.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's standard, everybody,
Okay, all right.
everybody talks.
It's April 9th is our next meeting, here in this room.
Nothing for the 16th, we're on for the 30th.
We're on for the 30th, all right?
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much, both of you, thank you.
Thank you.
See you then.
Next on the agenda is 7 Wentworth Farm Road. Hey, good evening.
I do. I do know where I'm going. Which would you like, is the question. Jeff, would you like the civil plan?
No, I was looking, oh, you have one, yes.
I do. Cool, huh? Yes, it sure is.
I'll do the plan, please.
Okay. The civil. SAS? Yep, I understand. One moment.
Planning board, zoning board, then it's.
It's a variable.
So that's,
They usually go before the.
it's pending approval by
It's a
planning.
lot nicer having all the streets.
It's just a
Isn't it?
And that all has to be submitted to the building.
It's worth my time to set it up.
It's all on the same page.
7.
Excellent.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Kane with LAL Engineering Group, representing the owners of 7 Wentworth Farm Road, this notice of intent application. This is the next iteration of the cluster development for Wentworth Farms that we were permitted just a couple years ago. The owners are now looking to start putting up some houses in there when the spring starts. So the first one we're looking at would be 7 Wentworth Farm Road, which is approximately a half-acre lot, a little over a half-acre lot, where we're looking to place 3 important elements: on-site septic system, obviously the house itself, and the access to that being the driveway. Each one of those elements has some regulations involved with it that kind of dictate where they're located on the site. The septic system, the most important one we have would be the groundwater offset to the test pits we've done out there, dictates the height and the grade around that system. The house itself is dictated by the height that's allowed in the town through zoning. We're allowed a certain height that's based on the existing ground, not the proposed ground after we do the work out there, so that kind of dictates where that house can go. And then the driveway itself, we have to provide safe access, can't be too steep, can't be anything kind of crazy. So that has to kind of, all those 3 elements have to kind of work together. That sets where these all go, kind of gives us the limit of grading and clearing. And in a case like this, we're at a just over half-acre lot. There's not a lot to play with there. So what you're seeing in front of you really is kind of what happens when you get all 3 of those working together.
Yes.
So that said, on the east corner of the lot, we have a small section of wetlands that actually is on the property. Upper right, yeah, right there,
Right up
Steve.
in here, yeah.
Beyond that, we do have the 25-foot no disturb, which is the red dash line, does come into the property, and then the 100-foot buffer itself is an orange line. Can you see that, Steve? It's right.
I can't, here.
Okay.
You know where it is.
Yeah, I do know where it is. It's right
You got me, 100-foot is right here. There it is. And it comes just around the front of the house. It's an orange dash line, so I'm sorry if it can't be seen too good, but I am colorblind. So I'm doing my best. So that said, if you look there, we have obviously the BVW, the 25-foot no disturb, and the 100-foot buffer. To meet the performance standards on the lot, we have the state standards that we've gone through. The state standard, meeting those performance standards, really involves not working within the resource area itself. So we do have the BVW, we're not doing any work in there. So that meets the state performance standard in that regard. We do not have any areas of estimated habitat of rare wildlife on the site, and we do not have any areas of critical environmental concern. So we've met the state standards for that. The town standards you folks have would be, one, incorporate the state standards, which we've done. Two is erosion and siltation prevention, which we do show on the plan, and we obviously would be using. Three would be catch basins, oil water separators, obviously not proposing any for this single-family house. And D is a resource area flagging and the plotting. The wetland flags have been delineated. They were accepted under the subdivision itself, so they are shown, they're on the plan, and those are the accepted ones. So,
Jeff, you may wish to show where this, where Ford Ranch Road is.
Sure.
And where this lawn is.
Sure.
This is a suggestion.
I'm going to
Good.
jump into this one,
Good.
yeah, this is the locust plan.
Right. Good.
So here's Ford Ranch here. Here's the new road. This is the one that's right on the corner, the first lot just over the bridge. If you went across the bridge, it'd be on the right in the corner.
Everyone likes to build right next to the conservation land. It's not the way.
I will say that the replication area is in, and it's actually looking good, so, yeah, it did. They put it in last spring, and it'd be nice to see it this spring when it's,
Yes.
yeah.
Where is it?
The replication area?
Yes.
It's just, if you went over, it's right, if you went over the bridge, right before you go over the bridge, you look to your right. A
Right.
clear area, you'll see some new trees put in there, so they graded it down to correct elevation, put in the seed, and then the trees in, so it'll be interesting to see how it takes this
Yeah,
spring,
we need
actually.
to see this.
Jeff, can I ask you a question? Right under where it says parcel, K-A-2-D, you've got the Cultec chambers, and that, I assume, has been sized to
Yes.
accommodate the runoff.
Yes.
How does the water get out of there? I see the inverts in the detail, but how is the water distributed?
It's just perks through there, it's almost like a
Just
septic
perks.
chamber, right, and what happens at the downspout itself on the house, there's an open end of the pipe, so if that chamber gets filled and it's sized for the half-inch over the roof area, once those fill up, it will discharge through the downspout.
Your hold off?
Yeah.
You may have to repeat that.
Gladly. So the Cultec size for a half-inch runoff over the roof area. Once that fills up beyond a half-inch, there's an open outlet at the other end of the pipe adjacent to the house. So that would fill up, and then any excess would still come down like a regular discharge from a gutter. But it's sized to infiltrate the half-inch over that impervious area of the roof. Now, half-inch, again, it's above and beyond. Half-inch is when you design a subdivision. You're looking for what they call the treatment volume, and that half-inch is what you size all your best management practices for, as far as treatment, forebays, and oil water separation, things like that. It's not part of a residential lot. You don't have to do that. We just put that in because you really should have something you're designing to. I mean, otherwise, you're just picking a number out of the air and saying, I'm capturing 1/10 of an inch of rain, There's no requirement for it, but it's nice to be able to design it to something to say, this is to the standards of DEP treatment volume.
All right. And well, what about tree clearing for the house?
Tree clearing, you're going to see here, we did locate them on the plan. We do have the number. And on this lot itself, on lot 7, we're at 21 trees that are graded at 4 inches or greater at diameter of breast height. Now, we do obviously try to limit the amount of clearing, but as I talked to you, with the 3 elements that we have to put in, size and locate, you do end up with that area that you see on this plan being the cleared area. Again, we're looking at a half-acre lot. These lots are all part of, obviously, the cluster development that we permitted before. I know some of you folks in Newry weren't here, but we did permit this as part of the cluster development. As part of that, over 4 acres of land was put into an open space conservation restriction. That was kind of part of the mitigation for this project as a whole. So the developer has given up over 4 acres, and it is in a conservation restriction. And we look at that as part of the mitigation. Beyond that, we are at a small lot, but beyond that, we have done measures that we list here in the NOI that I can go through that we think help as well for mitigating these factors. But
Could you
we-
just run through those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
So our project mitigation we're looking at is, first one was the lot size being reduced. This leads into what we said about the smaller lots, more area for open space that was given over to the conservation restriction. Second part would be the low-impact design of the project itself as well. We looked at a reduced pavement width with no paved sidewalks for this whole development. That reduces impervious amounts, it reduces runoff, and encourages more infiltration on the site.
Do you apply that to the driveways as well?
Not the driveways, no, but will say this, the driveways were all sized at, these lots were allowed at 30% lot coverage, which is.
Seems like a pretty large driveway.
35%? You said 30, isn't it 35?
I think it was 35% then, I think. One or the other. I know we're below that.
That's what you've got in your.
Okay, so it's 35, I'm sorry. So we say, it was allowed at 35% lot coverage. The way these work out with the grading and the septics and the houses, we weren't gonna get up to that amount, so we're below 20 now. There's already built in the fact that we're having less runoff than we anticipated in the beginning, so.
Is there flexibility on the orientation of that? I mean, does it need to,
On
does
this-
the curb cut need to occur? Yeah, that's.
I'll tell you, it all works in together. These are very, and the owners here with us, very difficult to site these with the setbacks from the septics and the property lines in the wetland areas. It was a very difficult orientation.
So you wouldn't be able to pull that away from the 25 at all?
Once we do that, with that house footprint, you're rotating the whole house.
Okay.
It just, believe me, I was cognizant of the 25 and the grading around it, knowing that it can meet that. But I had made that driveway shorter than it would typically be for a side load, as far as the width out the side to make the turn. But I think it can be done. Those are 1-foot contours, I believe, in that area too, so once, the slope isn't quite as crazy as you would think. It's, put it this way, I always designed it to be mowable. There's gonna be grass, so.
They're 2-foot contours.
Can you give me a guesstimate of the impervious area?
Yeah, it's here.
Is it?
It's, yeah.
They're 1 foot high.
It's,
higher.
It's a 4,400 square foot, 5,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet of impervious
Yeah, I think I put it on the chart in here.
Okay.
5,000 out of the
5,000.
27,697.
Thank you.
I'm lost.
sorry.
Where is the driveway?
The driveway's right down, I'm just looking at the plan here.
John, look behind you, please.
This is the opening here.
Yeah.
How wide is that, Jeff?
That'll be, it matches a 3-car garage, so it's about 34 wide.
I see, okay.
So if I just want to finish up with the other mitigation measures,
Yes. Good for you.
as we talked about the roof drains that capture the first half-inch of rainfall, we did try to minimize where possible the yard slopes. You'll see in the back here. If you minimize the slopes, you're going to get a more chance of absorption of any runoff that comes from that site, as opposed to maximizing, where you're going to have an increase in velocity that's just going to run through the resource area. So, the other one is part of this development itself. If you folks recall that were on the commission, we do have the low phosphorus fertilizer requirement as part of the homeowners association. And then what we always put in was just to make sure all disturbed areas are stabilized between either loam, seed, or mulch, or some other type of measure, so you don't have exposed soil to be eroded.
And the low nitrogen fertilizer is part of the homeowners agreement?
You might want to consider, I was reading up recently on micro clover lawns, fertilize minimal,
Micro clover,
micro clover.
sounds invasive.
Well, it is from Rhode Island.
Not native.
Things are very iffy.
So with that said, obviously open up to Questions?
So I think we need to see it. I'd like to see this bridge, and I'd like to see the replication area.
Replication
We
area,
need to
yeah.
see that, yeah. So.
I agree.
So we can do the 30th. And I know when we were, when you were here before for the roadway approval, and we made some accommodations on the trees, and you had agreed that you'd replace some of them. We gave you some leeway because of the fact that we got 4 acres of land out
Right.
of the deal, which is good in conservation restriction. And then you were going to plant along the roadway some of the trees. What are your plans there?
We actually talked, if you remember, and I did review this as well, we never proposed street trees, and Mary made a good discussion about it, because of the proximity with the septics and the other elements, we didn't propose them on the plan because of that. Now, you start worrying about root infiltration into septic areas. So to try to space them evenly, you know, and again, I know you only have 2 right in front of you now, but if you start having septics in this area and over here, to get an even spacing of trees is difficult to do. So I know the owner always asks to say, we want folks that are gonna come in and buy this house, and they're gonna wanna put a little bit of a stamp themselves on it. They're gonna wanna landscape these themselves somehow. So the owner had always talked about putting some trees potentially down the property line, just as a privacy area, but allow people to kind of put some own landscaping on these sites. I mean, we all know that in this entire area, and honestly, in the town, since I've been permitting in here, most folks have really nice landscaping that they put in and they maintain nicely. So I think the idea was to always let these guys do a little bit themselves, since it's gonna be spec houses here anyway. So, I mean, the owner can talk a little bit about it if he wants, but I know, again, he had mentioned putting some trees on the side yard for privacy, but allow the owners of these houses to kind of put their own little bit on there as far as landscaping.
Understood.
Street trees don't have to be evenly spaced.
But they look odd if they're not.
I would disagree aesthetically, no.
Yeah,
A brand new
I-
development, but as vegetation grows, and as you're saying, other trees are added.
Yeah. I know we had the discussion during the subdivision, and the reason were, we had the elements that we didn't want to mess with the trees being so close to the ground and the grading. I mean, I don't agree with that part. I mean, doing developments, I think most people want to go in, unless you're seeing clusters of some type of specialty trees, that this whole site was done with the landscape architect, at that time. But to have not evenly spaced trees, to me, as an engineer, and doing this for a long time, it looks a little odd.
As an engineer is the important thing.
Yeah.
He thinks evenly spaced.
Yes, exactly. So if it's a matter of opinion, my opinion differs from
I'm going to
yours.
respectfully disagree, but
Okay.
let's keep that as still a possibility.
It is, but I do remember when we were doing the roadway and we were looking at the lots, we knew they were gonna have to move, like, look at the leaching
Yes,
field.
I do remember
And there's
that.
no other place to put it, and they put it as far away from the wetlands as
Right.
possible. And that would interfere, as Jeff just indicated.
And on the other side of the road, we do have a sidewalk-type structure. If you remember, it was a grass-paved type sidewalk. So you can't put trees in that, or even very close to that, because those roots are gonna push those things up. It's almost like a plastic grid that goes in. So now you're gonna have trees on one side. Now, that would take my engineering mind and just blow it. If you have trees on just one side. So I'll throw that out there, too.
All right, any other questions from commissioners? Are there abutters, members of the public that would ask a question or make a comment or a suggestion? Hearing none, can we meet you there on the Saturday, the 30th? And if we'll be in that area, but if we're gonna start in East Milton at Mr. Moore's house, that won't take long because most of us have been there 10 times. So we'd be there at 9:30 at Mr. Hack's property, and then we could come back. So we'll be there by 10?
Or 10:30 or so.
Yeah, right.
Now, just, me and Steve had a brief discussion, email about this. The flags that are in those wetlands, pretty old, and there's a good chance some of them won't be there. Do you want to see them all put on now. I know during construction, we have to maintain the 25-foot, which we can easily stake out and put the erosion control on there, but obviously, we're gonna stake out the house. Do you need to see the flag locations now, or is a 25-foot offset stake okay, or just wanna make sure everything's out there that you wanna see?
When did we approve them?
Part of the subdivision approval, which
No, but what, the date, remember? 27, that's
was about
not
a
that.
year old or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's not bad. So can you just stake the 25-foot?
Yeah,
Okay. That'd be good.
And then
Just any major ones that are in the
construction.
area.
yeah, and it'll be it'll be there anyway for the erosion control, right?
Anything else? So we'll meet you at about 10-ish, 10:15, 10:30-ish on Saturday the 30th. Okay. Good, thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay around. Get rid of me yet.
Oh, it gets down. Yeah. Isn't that next on the agenda is 16?
Yeah, we can take a look at that. All right, again, good evening, my name is Jeff Kane, for the record, with LAL Engineering Group, representing the owner for 16 Wentworth Farm Road in this notice of intent application. Again, this is obviously a continuation of the Wentworth Farm cluster development. 16 Wentworth Farm Road is similar, but with one big difference to the one we just looked at. There's actually no wetlands on this site, but the site does have the 25-foot no disturb located at the west boundary. As Steve gets down there. A little lower.
There it is, right there. Is that the
Nope,
line?
keep going down. That's the separate, there it is. See the red line?
This line
Yeah,
right here.
yeah. So that's the 25, right? And then again, the orange can be a little harder to see. Want me to take it over?
Yes, please.
So we have the 25-foot that does come into the property, and then we also have the 100-foot buffer. Let me find that
That's the
one.
house. There it is.
Oh, there it is, okay.
So that follows here. It's hard to see. And the tail's away over here. So
Yeah, it
it's-
follows the line of the house.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a good majority of the house and the driveway are actually outside of the buffer zone, but we do obviously have part of the house in the rear yard and the grading as in the buffer zone itself. So again, same situation applies. We have the three elements. We have the driveway, the house, the septic system that have to fit on this lot. Again, it's a bit smaller of a lot, but still about a half acre. We do try to respect the 25-foot as much as possible. Again, there are no BVWs, but we do have the buffer zones for it. We meet the performance standards by the state by obviously not doing any work within the actual resource area. Again, we do not have an area of estimated habitat of rare wildlife or any areas of critical environmental concern on site. So we meet the performance standards by the state in that regard. As far as the town performance standards, the same. We incorporate the state standards, which we do not have any. We provide erosion and siltation control, which we are showing at the limit of work. Again, we have no catch basins, oil separators, and the flagging of the resource area is the same way. These were part of the flags that were accepted with the subdivision, and we do have them obviously located and plotted on the plan. The total amount, let me get that. Total amount of disturbance in the buffer zone would be 7,400 square feet in this filing. Total amount of added impervious is 1,200 square feet. So we're less impacts than the previous lot, but obviously still within your jurisdiction. So the amount of trees being removed greater than 4-inch DBH would be 14 in this filing.
I guess my first question is about the grading in the back going towards the 25. Is it necessary to go all the way back that far? And is it possible to dial that grading back and to potentially even preserve some of those trees
I think
back
there's a
there?
potential to dial it back a little bit. What we did try to do is what you mentioned, the other ones, is we don't want to make it obviously too steep back there either. You
Sure.
don't want to,
No,
obviously,
the
not
existing
even,
grade is, yeah, it's,
right, you can see, so on this corner here, you're going to be a little tighter, so the grade's here, so it's nice to spread them out a little bit. We did mark the trees, and I want to see, I have them here, because there didn't seem to be as many in that area. And when you walk it, you'll actually see it's a little clearer over here. But I think we could pull it back somewhat. These, in this case, is 2-foot contours, and I just don't want to make it too steep.
sure.
But I think there's a little bit of ability to pull it back.
Those trees are staying.
The house size is the same, correct?
It's a little different.
You see what I'm
I
saying?
think this one's
the
actually a
side
little
of
smaller.
Smaller?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I'm just interested in the Caltech chamber.
Yes,
It's smaller.
yes, it is, and the house is a little bit smaller, so.
Yes, this,
Is
I
that,
think this one here had a better infiltration rate as well.
those are the existing grades.
So there's a
this is
20
all
foot,
they're
and the
gonna
other is,
recontour the
I mean,
land to make
yeah,
it-
and the other one's a
Yeah.
30 foot.
Yeah, and this one I said had a better rate of infiltration too, so you're gonna get more bleeding
so
through as you're
if he
putting it
opens
in
all
as
that up,
opposed to
it'll
the
just be
previous one.
grass.
Yeah.
And it's pushing it all the way back to the 25. I think.
What's the square footage of this house, do you know?
I don't, I wanna say this is close to 4. Do you recall roughly what the square footage of that house was?
4,200.
For this one?
Yeah.
I thought it was smaller, okay, but somewhere around 4. That's obviously total, not footprint.
All right, but that's, I mean, is there some calculation that goes,
For
that
the
relates
size?
to the Caltech size
Oh, yeah.
to the?
It's literally, it's the roof size times 1/2 over 12, and that gives you the square footage, sorry, the cubic footage. And then you size the Caltex, but you also put in the infiltration rate of the soil underneath it, so it's leaving at the same time. So it's not a complete capture volume.
What's the dimension that you're showing in the garage there?
That should be 34 by 24.
What's the 110 by 2? What does that mean?
Oh, that's the garage elevation,
Oh, okay.
110.2. The
Okay.
X is the location where it would be.
Ah, so it's just kind of,
Yeah,
okay.
you'll see it on the corners of the house.
It's a
too.
thin garage.
Yeah.
Couple of hostas.
That's just where that's a spot shot. Okay.
3-car garage.
Yeah. maybe 3.
Confused, but the contours aren't consistent. They go
All right, any questions from commissioners?
To show the 1 foot, because that's a critical elevation.
Just
of
if
the
he,
harder area of the
you know, if
grading.
there's possibility to
Kinda
dial back in the
see- you wanna
grading,
see where
preserve
the
any trees on the
area
lot.
Where that last contour runs.
We
that's
should
why
look at it while we're there anyway.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, There's a
It
2
throws
foot in the
me.
back, yeah, because it's a bit of a critical elevation, it's harder to show, you want to show what's going on there.
Okay,
So the 2 foot's in the back, it's just hanging on.
thank you.
Hans, can you make that same comment against
Yeah,
what Jeff here
just what I
said?
said earlier, if there's any way you can assess the limit of grading and, you know, whether
Yeah, in the
there's
back, we'll look at that. I
any
think
trees
it-
in the back that can be
The
preserved.
idea was to make kind of a happy medium between steeping the runoff and allowing some of this to perk into the ground as opposed to making it steeper and sheeting off faster into the wetland area.
Sure.
But I think there's a little bit of, we can pull it back some, I'm sure. Yeah.
Are you bringing in soil for this?
It depends on how much gets removed for that system. We actually didn't do I haven't done the volume of removal between the foundation and the septic system to actually spread it over there yet, you know, like that. But we're trying not to, put it that way, obviously. We're trying to keep whatever comes out of the hole on site and just use it for grading.
All right. Questions from the commission? Abutters, members of the public, any questions, comments, suggestions? Hearing none, we'll see you on Saturday, the 30th. All right?
That's right.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure I don't forget it.
Just remember that microphone was on this old house.
All right, next on the agenda is request for determination of applicability, 68 Meredith Circle. Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Hi, how are you?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. I'm Mary McKettrick, representing the applicants. Shayla O'Brien is here. She is the owner, one of the owners. Would you like me to proceed?
Yes, just tell us, what this is about.
So this is actually I became involved in this project representing the O'Briens for their application to the Board of Appeals, because what they're doing is creating a connector between their house and their existing garage. And you can see that on the site plan. The existing garage is on there. The existing driveway is on there. When you connect the house and the garage, you're creating, in addition to creating an addition, all of which is going to be conforming from a zoning standpoint, but you're also adding the garage to become, and making a part of the house. And the existing garage only 5 feet from the side lot line. So the O'Briens needed a variance in order to do this project, because they needed a variance to leave the garage where it is, because it's only 5 feet from the side lot line, and now it's going to become part of the house. So the only change in the lot that's occurring, other than the construction between the house and the garage, is that the garage is now going to be approached from the side rather from the front, because the front's going to be connected to the house. And to do that, the driveway has to be somewhat relocated. So you should see, if you look on the plot plan, which you should have in your materials, you'll see a dotted line which represents the approximate line of the existing driveway, and you'll see the proposed 12-foot wide driveway going into the existing garage. So there's an impervious area where the driveway was, and some of that's going to be re-landscaped. I'm not exactly sure. Shayla can explain it. But in any case, the reason we're here is that when I became involved in the project, I could see that way in the back of the property, not really on the property, but in back of it, there seemed to be a sort of a wet area. And so I asked the O'Briens if they'd ever had that looked at, and they hadn't. And I suggested that they have somebody come and look at it, a wetland scientist come and look at it and see if it were wetland, and if so, if they would locate a wetland line so that the O'Briens could see whether they're anywhere near the 25-foot or the 100-foot from the wetland with any of this work. So they did do that, and their wetland scientist is Christopher Lucas, and he determined that the wetland flag, he set wetlands flags on the property that you can see here. And their engineer then did field measurements for the 100-foot line. And this was basically so that they could see whether any of the work that they were proposing to do, which most likely would be the driveway relocation, was going to be within the 100-foot area. And then I pretty much thought that was the end of it, but then I asked Kathy, and she said that, you should really come in and have the commission look at this and see whether they agree with the wetland line. So just to give you a little bit more background, most of the lot is pretty level. On the right side, as you go into the lot, it goes up to a grade. Is that right, Shayla?
It's
Maybe
small.
you should describe it, because you're more familiar with it.
It's on the screen now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's fairly, Steve's been out there to see it. I mean, I have one picture of it here that my husband just sent this, and he apologized, he's not here, he's away for work, but it's a
I know
flat
this isn't an
area.
official record, but this is a photo on
But
the
it gives
phone.
you an idea
But it
of
does
what
show
the
you
land
the
is like.
flat green backyard, basically, that's what they were dealing with, so I don't think
And the
anything like this.
wetlands are beyond that,
Yeah.
and obviously all the work is past the 100-foot area.
Are you moving this shed, or that's
No,
where it exists?
nothing's being
What
moved.
shed?
So it's existing, okay.
That's the
What
existing
shed?
garage.
Oh,
That's the garage, it extends into a back, that's just the garage with
Yeah.
a
The
additional
only-
space in the back.
the only new construction part is on that shaded area, the 2-story addition and a 1-story mudroom. So currently, the garage is oriented towards where
Everything's
that
outside
mudroom
that
is?
100-foot buffer. Yeah.
Shaded
We
area.
are past that one, yes, we're outside the 100 foot.
Okay.
And there's the 100-foot right there.
It looks so pretty, what a nice backyard you have.
It's a
I
very-
know, hoping to enjoy it some more, too.
It's a very unusual lot because it's much larger than it needs to be. This is a C zone, but the lot is something like, it's over 25,000 square feet.
Yeah, 29,000.
And
If it's an existing shed, a studio,
Yeah,
You're not doing
It's
this.
not
There's no work,
it's
there's no
not
work.
touching
to
it.
do.
Jurisdictional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I don't want to adopt the wetland flags
Yeah.
unless we see them, but because it shows that it's outside and non-jurisdictional, I'd look to Steve, have you looked at the flags?
As an
I have not seen
RDA,
them.
I don't think that that's really,
Or
If
for an
we-
RDA or a notice of intent, either
Well,
one.
but if we're approving, we're not necessarily approving the line at this point for an
That's right.
RDA.
That's what I'm saying. We
Yeah.
don't want to approve, I don't think we ever have approved the line without looking at it. So I'm saying if
Okay.
we can rely upon Steve's assessment because it shows it's outside. If it showed it inside,
Yeah,
then
I have not seen the flags, but I know that the area where I thought was wetland was exactly that shape, I will say that. But I have not seen the flags, sorry.
is it flagged now?
Yes, so flagged. I didn't check it after the storm last week, but they've been in there. They were, I could still see some, at least some of them. I didn't check and make sure everyone was still there, but,
Okay.
yep.
Well, we haven't even asked for abutters or anything, but one of the things we could do is issue a negative determination under the RDA component, and basically contingent upon Steve's verification.
Certainly. Happy to do that.
Having said that, are there any abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Are there any other questions from commissioners? I'd suggest a negative RDA contingent upon Steve's verification of the line, which demonstrates it's outside of our jurisdiction. Does that make sense?
yes, that's exactly what.
Moved?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Good to go.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
You need the green card, so when I get them, right? Or Kathleen does. Thank you.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Well, do you want me to keep those and give them to you?
No, it's okay, should have got them tonight, actually, I'll stop by and check
Okay,
those.
thank you very much.
There was Arthur, and then Hans.
Is this the swimming pool?
Number 6, we've already done. Number 7, notice of intent, 196 Ridgewood Road, continued hearing.
It's a swimming pool, all kinds of trees.
Assume everyone has copies of the plans.
Yes.
I didn't realize you got into the 90s with this.
For some reason, alphabetical
Not totally
reader
there.
thinks that this is needs a compact 8-inch fonts.
PDF, right?
It's a PDF.
All right,
May take a while.
wasn't sure if
Start there.
Jay could see it. If the board has copies of this. What we ended up doing was we went back and located all the trees 3 inches and above. Highlighted in red is the ones that we plan on removing, there's approximately 20. You'll notice that we ended up moving the pool away from Jay's property, the neighbor, and then pushing it back as far as we could. Oh, there it is, or half of it.
Some of it at least.
We go to the next one.
How's that?
Yeah, okay, so there's, the red trees are the 20 trees that we're gonna be removing for, in the resource area. They're variant size, I think the largest is a 36. Then there's a couple of 15, 18s, a few 3s. If you wanna scale over to the next, this drawing.
Which way? Oh.
Slide it over.
I don't think I have the drawing. This was a scan, just this side, sorry.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't
So,
have a scan of that.
so what we ended up doing after the site walk was we pushed the wall away from the abutter's property to hopefully maintain that triple, I think it was a tupelo tree, which is right on the line, more or less. We reduced the height of the wall in that area there. We pushed the pool away from the property line a couple of feet, and we moved it back to the rear of the property as far as we could without getting into the 25-foot no disturb with the retaining wall. There's now a retaining wall on the opposite side of the property, of the pool, sorry, so we took the one big retaining wall out, moved it over, dropped it down a little bit, and then there's a retaining wall on the right-hand side of the pool. The left side, if you're looking from the house out.
It's the left, what am I missing? It's on the left-hand side of the pool.
There's a retaining wall. That wasn't there originally. We had graded it out. We originally just had
But what I'm looking for it though.
Right here.
Oh, that far out?
Yeah.
Okay.
The wall's in here.
Okay.
It goes along the left side and then across the back. And what that ended up doing is because we pushed it away from Jay's property and pushed it back, we didn't have the room to grade it safely. So that's why we put the retaining wall there. And we ended up moving the cabana house and the what do you call it, the mechanicals over, away from Jay's house again, and pushed as far back as we could.
And what is that shed made out of? What I'm interested in is sound baffling.
Is it sound baffling? It's a wood shed.
I know, but what our concern was out there, the pump house, we've had issues before when people say it's too loud, it's running too often. So there are easy ways to baffle that sound, because you can put the shed in, such a situation, you can maneuver it or turn the sound so that it goes elsewhere.
We did. The mechanical, if you look at the gray area, that's where the mechanicals are gonna be.
Right, got it.
So it's buffered as far, I guess, as we can, because it also, Jay's house is here. We come across, we go down the retaining wall to the patio area.
Got it.
And then there's the shed. And then we put the mechanicals in the far back. It's just,
No, I understand that. My point is different. That is, you can, rather than using wood, or perhaps inside the wood, there are certain sound baffling materials that can assist, and we've seen manufacturers' specs on that. And it's not expensive.
No, but
Just something that you add to it.
we're making it sound like it's a huge noise and nuisance, but if you do the decibel count on the pool pumps, it's the same sound as just a normal conversation, probably like we're talking right now. And it's not on all the time.
I know, we've done 1,000 of these over the years. I know. I'm just saying that there are ways to help it that are very cheap. It's not a big deal.
Like, just a sound baffling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get involved like we did at.
I don't know what they are. I mean, I don't know what they are. No, but I've seen the manufacturer's specs for them. We did one on Carberry Lane.
Essentially, you can use insulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like styrofoam insulation, if you put a core of that, it'll be sound deader.
It's easy and cheap.
In front of it, okay.
And the other thing on the mechanical room, is this a closed system? Because we don't want discharge water.
There's no backwash, it's a cartridge.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we explained,
On the right-hand side, you have, right next to the pool, you have landscape and waterfall feature, F-E-A-U-T-R.
Oh, thanks for pulling
The
that
teacher,
up.
the teacher.
It's French. I meant to say something else.
What is that?
It's a waterfall feature that's built in, so it's built into the pool. So
Okay,
it
so that's
circulates
sound
water.
as well.
Yes.
That'll be falling water?
Yes.
Is it within that structure, or is it an additional structure? Or are you
It's
staying within
actually,
the same
it's
footprint?
within the wall.
Okay.
It's just like a rock feature where the water, comes down. And we actually, I think we sent, on the original submission, we had a copy of the a
Yes.
rough idea of what it looks like. It may vary a little.
You did.
Now, this is a daycare center as well sometime?
Yes.
A home?
Yes.
And is it anticipated that the kids will be using the pool as
No.
well? No.
I don't know.
No, never. The area is like
We
on
have,
the side.
if you remember from the sidewalk, we have a fenced-in area here where the children play that comes from this area, and this will be solely for the grandchildren of college.
And there's a
And
second,
friends.
there's a second fence, isn't there?
Yes, and there's a fence around the pool.
Right.
And with those two fences, like, that acts almost like a natural barrier for the resource area.
All right, now, we did get Scott's,
Letter.
yeah, in terms of the flagging. Because my concern was original when we were standing there, and I know what the regs say about, within 30 feet of the line, you've got a test pit, and we could see at test pits. But there were certain areas where the flags were that we couldn't figure out why they were put where they were.
No, there's essentially, you've got kind of an intermittent stream. It's a very broad swale that comes down in the back here. I think this whole distance, it's probably 30 feet wide, so there's not really a confined channel. It kind of sheet flows through there. And then over through this, on the abutter's property, there's more of like a, lack of a better word, it's not really a spring, but kind of like a headwaters to another wetland that kind of flows down towards it. I did test pits. There's one here, the upland test plot. My intention was that's kind of the closest area to the work, so I did a test plot there, and I did one test plot that was out here. Normally you do them on both sides of the wetlands, but because I would have been in the middle of the neighbor's property, I didn't do one there. I just did one on the back. So that's kind of the oddity to the transects. And then in the report, there's copies of the BVW field data forms and that information.
I can't remember the number, but I think we were close to,
Probably
I
three.
think it was around 4. And there was just a small stump, do you remember that? There was just it was probably about a 2-inch caliper tree that was cut. It was only about 3 inches tall. And we didn't know what kind of a tree it was, so we didn't know why the flag was there. There was no topographical distinction. There was no vegetation in the area. There were no soil samplings there. And we
Yeah.
were just trying to figure out how, and I think it could have been 3, but I thought it was 4.
Yeah, because it's so flat, I did a number of soil samples in through here and also looking at the vegetation in the area. A couple of flags where I was able to hang on trees. I believe they were like sugar maples or clearly upland vegetation that I was hanging to. Even in the wetland test plot, I think it was even almost difficult. I kind of had to shift that around just to even get the vegetation to come out wet, because you've kind of had that sheet flow in through there and.
But you did do soil sampling other than the test pit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Every delineation, every flag, once you start, you're taking augers, you're looking at the soils, trying to narrow down that wetland line to kind of come to a conclusion of where that line is. So in this particular case, where it's relatively flat, I was augering in some places 3 or 4, 5 times for each flag. This area here there was more topography, but across this back, it's those low-lying areas, you gotta really look and be confident with both the vegetation and the soils.
I can't remember, Steve, were you with us or
I
were you
was
traveling?
not with you.
It's on vacation.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, no, I went out there last Friday, of course, but you couldn't see anything in the snow. There was a foot of snow on the ground.
Right, okay. But are there soil logs to show where you, or what you saw by way of soil?
The only, in the field forms, it's got the upland and the wetland test plots.
Just a test plot, right.
But I didn't document each and every soil evaluation, but that's.
What were the big changes you saw? What was the change? Do you remember what it was? Was it a glade to a?
It wasn't so much that.
What was the?
I think
Remind me what the upland soil looked like.
upland soil, I think it was a 10YR 3.2
3.2.
topsoil, whereas the wetland was 10YR 2.1.
That's not
So
very much change, right? It's a really very small change. And basically, what that happens in areas that are flat, that have water that spreads out over the area. It's a typical thing. And sometimes it takes a long time to do the work. I will agree with that. Generally. But again, I have not seen the
I
detail.
can't remember, did we ask them to give us a survey of the species of trees that are being cut down? Did we discuss that? No.
You have, I
I
think.
don't know, I
it's-
think we did, because
Thought
there
we
were a few
did
that we were
discuss that.
talking about.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah, we
couldn't
did
really
not.
identify.
The larger ones, we were,
Yeah.
yeah.
It says deciduous. I know you did
Yeah.
miss a snag that's going to be cut, but that's not a living tree, Judith.
Right.
So there's a large snag out there that I noted, just from inside the fence,
Okay.
that's all.
It just can be good to know that when we're thinking about what to replace, what's being lost.
Yeah, I will tell you, based upon the report, we've got red oak, white oak, red maple, sugar maple, and white ash out there.
Okay.
Also got some tupelo as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
that
one
we
on
did
the
see
side.
Tupelo, yeah.
Right.
And how many trees over 4 inches?
20 being cut.
3 inches of,
We did 3 inches.
And 3 and up?
Yeah.
Usually,
We asked that, and they said
okay,
3.
okay.
So, do you have a landscaping plan that could accommodate some of those?
What do you mean accommodate?
Well, if you're removing the trees, we're looking for replacement somewhere.
Oh, and you have to put it somewhere else? The pool, it's not the...
Right. Trees don't stand up well in pools. So,
Is there,
We can, right now, we don't, and we didn't plan on it.
but we will. That will.
But I don't know where we can put 20,
Yeah.
that many trees.
oh, that's true, but what we typically do is we have, a couple of things. Sometimes you can place them elsewhere in the property, sometimes you can put them elsewhere in the town. Sometimes when there's not a designated place to put them, you can put them into our inventory, hypothetical inventory, which does exist. I mean, we have a tree, I think Kathy has a tree farm on that, but people contribute to, they get a credit by contributing to either a fund, or you can get a credit from a nursery or something, so that we can then call upon that nursery to plant the tree,
Yep.
at the appropriate time and place.
I mean, like I said, the way the yard is right now, there's really no place we want, you could put them, because this is the play area for the kids, so the backyard's pretty much done. And like I said, we try to preserve as many trees as we can along that line. And then in the front yard, so assuming that the fund would probably be the best bet.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out a way, because we have a performance standard of 3 to 1, and that's a lot of trees. So there might be a way to do shrubs to kind of soften the blow of
Yeah,
60 trees.
Yeah, this is what we've talked about, Hans, exactly. This is a good example. So 3 to 1, 20 trees, 60 trees, $500 about each tree. It's $30,000.
You said 20, isn't it?
3 to 1, it's 3 to 1.
3 to 1, so we're looking for a way to soften the
We're trying to
blow.
get around this for you a little bit.
There may be shrubs. Do you have an area where shrubs
Well, we
would
would
be?
definitely
Yeah,
use
there's-
the landscape with shrubs and all around the pool and in the front of the house as well. We're planning to
Redo.
do some work. If that,
Yeah, I mean, it's because I was talking to trees at the time.
yeah.
There's really no place to put trees, but there's definitely places we could put. She's got a landscape around the pool, obviously, and at the base of the wall.
and between the wall and the boundary to the easterly,
We're just gonna leave it natural. Right now, it's,
but you could add shrubs.
oh yeah, we can add shrubs to the top then, correct.
You might even be able to add shrubs in that 25-foot zone as well.
True.
How do shrubs compare to trees?
What is the budget for your project, if I could ask? What is this whole budget
Well,
about?
I'm the grandmother. I'm doing this for my grandchildren.
Actually, identify
and
yourself for the record first.
I don't have a budget, but I
I'm
guess.
hold on, could you identify yourself? We have to do that.
My name?
Yes,
Carla
yeah.
Dubar.
Okay.
I what can I say? I guess I was thinking if it could be done, everything, $120,000 would be,
Wow, that's a
which
lot.
seemed like a lot at the time for a pool, but maybe it's not. I
There's a
don't-
lot of walls.
Seems like a lot, but it goes quick when you
It
start
goes-
adding
yeah.
pool and retaining walls and, you know, patios around the pool.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
So, we're trying to work with you
I
on this issue.
appreciate that, yeah, I had no idea that the fees would be.
And how about coming back with a landscaping plan and just keep 60 in your mind and then kind of give us a balance of trees
Trees
and shrubs? And, you know, that'll significantly reduce the cost. But it still helps the environment and it keeps us within our performance standard. That
We
would be
do this
really-
with everybody. It's 3-to-1. When you cut down a tree, it's everybody. So
Yeah.
that's where we begin.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not asking people to replace, you know, like a 2-foot tree with a 2-foot tree. I mean,
No,
the
no,
2-foot tree
I-
goes and you plant a 2-inch caliber tree. But we're trying to make it livable for homeowners and still help the environment. So if you had a landscape plan, that just keep that number in mind and then come back with, high bush blueberries and something that's attractive to you and to the
And when we say $500 a tree, that's in the extreme. A lot of times people can do it for $100 a tree, or, plant it themselves or something like that. It doesn't have to be $500.
All depends on size.
Yes.
It does,
Yeah.
it does.
Mr. Chairman, Scott might be able to assist with that project. And particularly when you think about putting trees or shrubs in the 25-foot zone.
Sure.
Yeah.
He might have some good suggestions as to what to adjust, how to adjust that area, how to make it have higher wildlife habitat functions and values.
Yeah, we can.
Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah, that sounds good.
And I don't know what your construction plans are, but we're definitely not trying to slow you down. How fast do you think you could come back? And maybe I'd go to Scott. How fast can we get a landscape plan back from you?
I could put together something by the end of the week.
All right, I assume you're not going to break ground this week, so
well,
we're
we'd love to
meeting.
be able to tell this is, we actually started looking at this last summer, hoping to do it in the fall, and so if we could even tell, well, I guess first people to get started are the people who cut the trees, so that's probably what we can't do yet.
We have a public meeting on the 30th, so we could put it on the agenda. And if you get the landscaping plan to us, we'll be able to vote on that day.
Otherwise,
That makes
after that, the next one is the 11th, the 9th, so it's not that much later.
So it's either the 30th of March or the 9th of April.
And our goal is to just try to, other than that, and we will definitely do whatever we should do to the shed, pool house, baffling, whatever, just,
Yes. And it's easy and cheap.
sure, yeah, whatever, just want to get the pool permit.
And one of our conditions will also be that it's a cartridge filtration system.
Yes.
So that there's no discharge, because we have had issues with that.
The back.
What's that?
Diatomaceous earth out the back.
Yeah, right.
I don't think you do diatomaceous that much anymore. What's
Yeah,
the pools we've been doing
it
with
seems,
cartridge?
at one point it became very expensive, but now it's very, very common. All right, are there any, I think I asked this, but are there any abutters or members of the public? Yes.
Can I get up and speak?
Yes, sir. Use the mic and identify yourself.
I'm Jay Therault. I'm an abutter, and I was on the last meeting in the site block, and this is the first time I'm seeing a new plan, so I may have a lot of questions.
Sure.
So how much did the pool get moved? Do we know?
You can see the outline of the old pool? Right here? And we moved it away from you and farther back.
Where's the outline?
See that gray line? The back of the pool was here, the front of the pool was here.
But I mean on the side, how much did it move?
Oh, it went over like 3 feet. It's,
Just 3 feet?
yeah,
So it's still not in the middle of the property, is that correct?
no, but we moved the shed. and
With the
pool
shed on
house
the other
here,
side.
Because you wanted that as far away from you.
Well, the shed, what I was concerned about is the retaining wall.
And we moved the retaining wall over.
And what's the distance between the retaining wall and?
17 and a half feet?
And is there an engineering plan for the retaining wall?
Not yet.
Do you know if that's enough distance to tie that retaining wall in so my fence doesn't?
17 feet?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. What's the finished height of the wall? Do you know that yet?
Top of the wall is 185, the bottom of the wall, it's 5 feet here.
5 foot wall?
Yeah. It's 5 feet at the max.
Okay. And the water structure, how tall is that? The water feature you were talking about?
It's like 3 feet tall. It's just, it's not a.
So I'm not going to
it's
be
below
looking
the
at,
wall.
I'm not going to be looking at like
No,
a back
it's not
of
gonna
a
be shooting up in the
10-foot
air.
wall back
No.
there? Okay.
It's actually gonna end up probably getting built into the wall. It's just like, literally, it's like, there's a picture of it in the file, it's like 3 feet high and the water just pours over it.
Jim, when you moved the pool, as I'm looking at it, to the left and then back.
Yep.
Was that, by doing that, can you save some of the trees?
Yes, that's a part of the reason, was saving the trees along here. That, there was a tupelo that.
Yeah, it's a shade tree that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
Right.
This may be a crazy question, but we have a very friendly neighbor who, what if we could plant a tree in the neighbor's yard, a couple of trees? You know, every other house on the street has already gone back to the edge of the property, they've already cleared. So if any of them would be willing to have us plant a tree in their yard, could that be part of the plan?
Sure, I think we suggested that on Forbes Road for the vernacular.
Mhm.
So the, John Keefe was gonna plant it on Sandy Will's property. I don't know if he did or not, but that was the deal. So the answer,
So is that a yes?
the answer is yes, yes?
Or would another option maybe be to plant the trees along the street in the right of way, in the way that the town does, but instead of using the trees from the town's inventory, we could use them from.
It's a good idea.
This project?
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think you're asking
And it's more of a
somewhere,
public benefit.
somewhere for the
Right,
public
good.
benefit,
Yeah.
not necessarily in front of this house. Is it-
Correct, yeah,
correct, okay.
yeah,
Well, that's a
along the whole
definite yes.
street.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that's where our
It's-
virtual inventory goes to, and we try to coordinate with the Shade Tree Advisory Committee.
Okay.
So we've got this, I guess it's a virtual inventory of trees.
Right.
So yes, that's exactly what that's for. And we've done that, we've used that at Turner's Pond. We planted trees in Turner's Pond. We just took from the virtual inventory and had them planted there. So that's a good idea.
Can the pool be moved any further away? If you move the shed somewhere else?
Now you're just starting to encroach on the, if you move the shed, like, the thing you asked was to get it as far away from as we can.
You get the
And we
pool,
did.
yeah. So it looks like if you took the shed out, it could even go even more to
Then
the
we
center
put,
of the
the shed would
project.
have to go over here.
Yeah.
All right, but that's not farther away from your house. But this is, you know, we've moved this thing as far over as she wants, and really, you know, it's gonna start interfering with the play area for the kids.
Okay, I actually think moving the shed with the pump in it and then adding the baffle, I don't think you're gonna hear it.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. It's probably gonna run during the day most of the time anyway. But
We never hear yours.
yeah, well, mine's on the other side of the whole property, so.
But the other side of your property is closer to their house than the back of this property will be to you. Does that make sense?
It does.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions or thoughts you have? Okay, fair enough, thank you very much.
Landscape plan,
Yes.
30th, if you can have it by the 30th.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
He knows we're rolling on the 30th, right? He's gonna have to meet us somewhere on the 30th, one of the site, or we're gonna go
No,
there?
we can,
We can do, if you get it to us, get it to Kathy.
Yep.
And as long as we have it in time, we can vote, you don't have to be there.
So you guys can just take it,
We're in a
review
public
it, and
meeting.
vote it?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. If we spot a plan, Steve, if you take a look at it, and if you see any issues with it,
Sure.
just, alert Scott, all right?
Happy to, no
Okay.
problem.
And otherwise, you wouldn't have to be there.
Okay.
Right,
Perfect.
easy.
Unless you want to come on.
And that
maybe-
last,
Right,
And
right.
since we're talking about maybe a street tree or two, maybe you could include, one or two trees that could be in the fund, as well. That would just be a couple of $100 then, which would be worthwhile to put on the street.
Yeah.
That's what
Street
the
trees
town
as
just
well.
had to cut down one in the front of the house that died, maybe we can.
Oh,
Replace that one.
replace that, sure. That
That'd be-
would be
that'd be
great,
good.
yeah.
So you're looking for 60 total shrubs, trees, and then we can kind of
yes,
finagle where we put those.
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
all right. Now that, sir, that landscaping plan is available at Town Hall. Actually, I think it's available at the DPW yard, which is closer to you. But just ask for Kathy Bowen. As soon as that's submitted, probably within a week, you can see it.
Okay, and then when's the next meeting?
It's the 30th, and that's a site visit, but we move around town. It's not in one locale like this. We move around, but if you want to be there, you could probably be,
Coordinate with Steve.
yeah, coordinate with Steve, because we're going to start in East Milton on Forbes Road, and then we're going to end up on Brush Hill Road by Flatley Field. So we're going to be moving around.
March 30th.
March 30th, and we start at 8 o'clock, but if you talk to Steve, you'll know where we are at what time.
Okay.
Or Kathy as well.
Yes, yeah, Kathy will know. All right.
And we'll have a copy into the commission, so if you want to
Yeah.
request it from Kathy, I don't see, she can probably just email it to you.
Okay.
All right, good. No other questions? We'll see you, well, we'll think about you on the 30th. Thank you very much.
Thanks, have a good one.
Okay.
Drive safely.
Okay.
The worst drive.
Next one is modification of order 151 Woodland Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My
Nice to
name is
see you.
Robert Hannigan. I'm an engineer for the applicant Coastal Building Solutions, Inc. And as I said in my cover letter, originally I was working with Paul Sullivan, and the projects have been taken over by his brother, John, who's also a builder, home builder.
We were sorry to hear about Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, he had...
We worked with him on many projects here.
Yeah, it was very sad. It was about a year he was ill, and young man.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So, we're here with a modification of the plan. Just as a bit of a history for the two new members, there was an order of conditions issued on the property for a house of similar size, you may recall. And Paul had a buyer who wanted a significantly larger home. And we were in the middle of that process, and I think we're pretty close to wrapping it up. And then the new owner wanted a pool and hot tub in the rear, so I'm not sure if that plan ever made it to the commission, but we never had a hearing about that particular one with the pool and the hot tub. But that buyer is no longer involved, and the house is significantly reduced from a footprint of 3,361 square feet to 1,940 square feet, which is reflected on the plan. And just to go over it briefly for the new members, there's 3 wetland areas on the almost 2-acre property, one in the rear, one in this location, and one which parallels Woodland Road. Then there's some off-site wetlands areas, 25-foot non-disturbed zones, and a 100-foot buffer. The earlier, or with the larger house, the commission thought that it was a major change, so we filed a new notice of intent. So I believe that's the number 0460497. The earlier order of conditions was filed at the registry of deeds.
Bob, can you hold on a second?
Certainly.
You can go back.
Okay, there was a previous notice of intent, order of conditions issued, as I said, for the smaller home, because the commission felt that it was a major change. We filed a new notice of intent, which is the 0460497. So, under that filing, we had shown on the plan the dual driveways within the easement, drive easement.
Your mic is in.
Dual driveways within the easement that was recorded at the registry of deeds. And one for Joe Delaney, the owner of the abutter's lot, and the other one for the proposed home. So that remains the same. It wasn't on the original notice of intent in order of conditions, but it is on this particular filing.
So, Bob, I'm just looking at the one that you just mentioned. I know I've got to be careful on the numbers. This is 046-0497. That's the second one.
Yes.
And the special conditions says any further additional general conditions that follow do apply and are part of the order of conditions. 43 was, this order is contingent upon the driveway easement plan by Robert E. Hannigan Associates dated August 15, 2016 for the property to be recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds. There was some confusion, it was done late, but can you confirm that that was done?
Yes, I can confirm that, and I did confirm that previously. And there should be a copy of the
recordation here, the book and page?
Yeah, the book and page in the file.
I think it's actually, the order itself has been recorded.
Is that order, is that file number 0497, the one that's recorded?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, so,
It is. The whole order is recorded.
okay, so is that the first one or the second one?
It's 0497. That is the second one.
Oh, it's the second one, so, okay. All right, so, yes, the easement plan was recorded, and...
Wait a minute, was the second one for the larger house? We didn't actually,
I think that the second one may have been, must have been, yes, because that's the reason why you...
Right,
well,
there was a significant change from the
that
first
was,
one.
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
okay.
So
So now
therefore...
we're back to the first one, more.
Well, actually, no, if we can modify the second one, who's on first? You could do it whatever way you'd like. You could substitute the plan for the first one.
Well, I love the idea it's a smaller house on a large lot. We never see that, so,
Especially this lot, we've been there
Yeah.
a couple of times and we found a lot of
yeah.
things to look at.
So whatever the commission pleases, if we want to modify the original one or the...
What's desired by the prospective client or?
I think probably the second one mentions the driveway. Probably the plan refers to the dual driveway. As you may recall, there was some issue as to, question as to, Joe Delaney may have at one point wanted to put a separate driveway on his property, and there were some wetlands issues there, but that, with the easement recorded in the dual driveway, then that eliminated that possibility, so.
But what you're showing on the plan now is kind of like an old-fashioned dual driveway with trees in between.
A planting area in between,
Yeah,
yes.
no, I don't think that was on the plan as we looked at it before.
It was on.
Was it on there?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think the second one.
Okay.
did it.
Well, fine.
So just to clarify, so there's two existing open order conditions? Is that-
Yeah, I didn't recall that the second one was actually closed and an order conditions was issued, but John said that that's the case, so.
And are they both for the same work, or are they the second order of conditions for the substantially enlarged house?
Yeah, the second one was, the basis of that was the larger house. The commission felt that it was a major change, so we
Required a
refiled.
new filing.
We refiled, yeah. So this actually,
This doesn't make any sense. It may be in the wrong file.
What year was the second one, Bob?
16.
Yeah, and we're looking at
So we're looking
14
at 14,
here.
right?
across the street. That's.
No, what year was it? What year was the second
not-
one?
not
that
the
was-
number.
Not the number. What year was it?
October 28th, 2015 was was this notice of intent.
Because we're looking at November of 14.
But that's not for this property. That's across the street.
Ah, you're in the wrong file.
Well, there's your problem.
No.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at a potential order of conditions that Kathy made out. And this is order of conditions for 46-0534. And the plan that's related to that order of conditions was dated 11/28/2017. The driveway easement plan, the first plan, that was the modification plan. The first plan was dated August 15th, 2016.
This is a mess because the
So-
number is right, but the plans are wrong. They're in the wrong, they're in the file. Now, this one is 0534.
Yes, 0534, that's correct. That's the latest one. Is that your recollection, Paul? This notice of intent was filed on 12/05/17. And it was issued 2/5/18. And I was here for that. I remember that because I went out and took a look at the flags.
But it doesn't show the driveway, does it?
Yeah.
No. Oh,
So this is 0534, Bob, but this is,
Right.
this and this go together.
Okay, so this was the one that was issued, and then the new owner came in and wanted the larger house, and subsequently the pool and the hot tub.
Right. So 534 was for the pool and the hot tub, is that correct, Bob? As I remember it, there was a retaining wall as well? What's the date?
No, the pool and the hot tub never got filed.
Retaining wall? Yeah.
October 28th.
August 1.
August
Right, Bob?
1,
Retaining wall.
2016.
I think 534 was for the larger.
Exactly. And that's what Kathy has, right.
Yeah, that's.
And there was a retaining wall right here, that's correct, right here.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah.
9/7/16.
The one that's.
Progressing.
That's the one really you're trying to modify, is the latest one, is that correct?
Yes. The one in red was the larger home.
Right.
It's been eliminated.
As
And
approved.
the blue shows the pool.
So this was as approved by the Concom last February.
So Bob, are you saying you want a hybrid, you want to go back to the original house, but with the driveway proposed for the second one?
I don't believe that the proposed house is the same as the one in the order of conditions. It's similar, but it's not the same. So this would be the plan that you would reference in an amended.
You know what I'd like to do? This is too sloppy for my way of looking at things. Unless you're in a big, big hurry, I think we should table this. I think you should get together with Steve. I think you should go through the files and make sure they're proper and come back to us in a month and have everything very clear and done correctly, and then we can look at it. That's what I would like to do.
We could do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I think you're right, because there are so many
Yeah.
maps and
Iterations
plans in
here.
here.
There were so
Yeah.
many
It's
different.
almost going by the month.
Different buyers.
Sit down,
and
talk with
different
Steve and Kathy
iterations
if
that,
necessary, and
Sure. So
come
this
back to
one,
us.
this was updated November 28th, 2017, to add the pool and the hot tub.
Right.
Okay, so you did get that.
Right, and that's the plan that's actually recorded on your order of conditions.
October
Or
28th.
534. That's the plan that's recorded.
And let them deal with it, because
Yeah, that's
otherwise
probably a good
we're
idea.
wasting a bit of
We'll-
time to go through.
I'd be happy to.
We'll sit down and we'll.
Sure.
So this one is intact, but be careful of the other file, because the order conditions 046-0497,
Never got
and the
recorded?
plan, they don't match.
Okay.
And I think you're right, Bob, I think that is across the street, that plan.
Yeah, I, from my memory, I didn't believe that the second notice of intent had an order of conditions issued, but apparently it did. But Steve and I can straighten it out, and I can summarize it in. Put a
April
summary
9th.
together.
Okay, so you don't want to, with your assent, we can put this off until
April
August-
9th.
April 9th?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
9th or 11th?
That's good.
9th, April 9th.
Yes. We can do that. Okay.
All right, good, thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Good.
But in the meantime, are there any comments?
Looks
Happy
good.
to see a smaller footprint.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
I agree. Makes good sense.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
All right, so next on the agenda is enforcement order 50 Summer Street. They've asked for a continuance until April, which makes sense with the snow on the ground. So unless there's an objection, we'll continue that. And their request is in writing in the file. That takes us to additional business.
Mr. Chairman, an update on your favorite project at 131 Elliott, Zero Central.
Hendry's.
Yes, you may have passed by there recently and noticed a larger hole in the ground in the center of the site. Back on, let's see, back sometime in October, there was a release recorded, and the release notification form was recorded on 26 December. Reportable release or threat of release was on 26 October. If people want to check it out on the net, they can look up 0035257 under the reportable release or threats of release under the DEP contamination site on the website. Basically, there's a large pile of soil, about 250 cubic yards out there now, next to a large hole. That large hole has not been, the extent of the contamination has not been found just yet. So they're still working on it.
What's the
Wow.
contaminant?
Gasoline.
Gasoline.
Oh, it is gasoline,
gasoline,
that's right.
yeah.
That's from that tank, right?
Yeah, and there's a large,
Oh, what a shock.
What's that?
right.
Oh, what a shock.
Yeah, right?
We only had monitoring wells there for 25 years.
Right, but that was a location that evidently did some work back in 1996 on.
Yes.
And was not complete,
Yes.
okay? Just as an update to
We're
the,
looking for the limits of that one.
exactly,
Yeah.
okay, generally. And you might have, I don't know if you got a copy, but there is a figure
A lot to give.
that shows you what's going on there.
Yeah.
It's a very large
Question in my mind
document that was probably sent to you by Kathy. If
It
not,
is all
we'll
well
send
known.
it to you.
Well, also,
Okay.
there's certain sites you can just see that, you know that you're gonna find
Kathy,
stuff, so we're
certainly.
surprised if you don't.
Right, that's the one, right there.
Now, did everybody get this packet, or is that?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Good, because it was pretty instructive.
I actually had a question on page 3 of that report from environmental consultants.
Sure.
Because on page 3, under D, any other information required by the department, it's saying in the first full paragraph under D, there have been known surface water or off-site impacts.
Yes.
So, right next to the river, it says, however, evaluation will continue. Do we know anything more about that?
I do not.
Probably related to the historic,
Right.
historic investigations of the site. So they're probably referring to the previous work that was done, the 25 years worth of.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So not necessarily currently.
No.
Okay.
All right, so is the construction actually held up?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, until they can get rid of the dirt.
That's right.
That,
And know the extent of the contamination, make sure that it's
Yeah.
fully identified and taken away.
To see if there's a plume.
Right.
Well, they may or may not have to fully.
Exactly, depending on testing. They're gonna be testing the sides of the existing excavation. And that horizontal barred area says proposed remaining IRA OWS/NAPL excavation. NAPL is
Non-aqueous.
non-aqueous phase liquid.
one of the problems that we had back when we were doing the sewage bypass, when we were out walking on Central Avenue.
Yes.
And we walked across the street, and we saw the excavation, and there was a mound of soil with a tarp over it.
Right.
That was just serendipity. Nobody notified us. And what my question is there a way that you can be notified or coordinate with DEP? Because they seem to be on top of it pursuant to these most recent reports. But can you connect with Rachel Freed or somebody and just say,
It's
tell
not,
us?
it's not the wetlands folks, it's the hazardous waste folks.
Right, and I know I
But I
said
would
that.
be happy to try, yes. Yes, okay.
My actual suggestion would be to contact the LSP that signs.
Right, and I have spoken to him a couple of times.
He'll be the one that coordinates any removal.
Right.
So once the soil, I believe they said they were sending it up to New Hampshire, but,
Right.
Yes,
they'll be on site to oversee that, so.
They must be.
DEP would get notified after that, actually.
Right.
So.
And I believe it's part of our order of conditions that
Yeah.
they're supposed to notify us.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we never got notice.
I spoke to Mr. Conley when I got back from vacation.
Okay.
I made the call. Once I was down there and saw the hole in the ground, I said, Steve, what's going on here?
They've been generating.
Got a hole in the ground.
Material.
Oh, well, the LSP is just filing some paperwork. And he was right. They just filed the paperwork. Okay?
Good.
So,
All right, yeah, whatever you can do to stay on top of that, because we seem to be left out of the information loop.
yes, will do.
Okay, good.
The next item for discussion is Benjamin Forestry Services for the proposal for either a bird, survey and/or forestry, or just the forestry survey of Pope's and Turner's Ponds. That's correct. You sort of set that aside until now, I think. Did you all get a copy of the example assessment plan? So you see what's involved with, and very extensive, with recommendations for management in the plan. I thought it was very well done.
I thought so,
Personally,
too.
I thought it was
Yeah.
extremely well
Do
done.
you have a recommendation in terms of, what do we get return on investment? I think one was, I know there are two, but one for Pope's Pond and one for Turner's Pond, but one was like 1,400 and one was 2,200.
or 2,400, something like that. It's 20 to 2,400. And then if you forego the bird component for Pope's Pond, it's 1,825 to 2,150. He gave a range.
Correct, but there's a range for each recommendation as to. You know,
I would love to see the whole ball of wax done, frankly.
I would too.
For both
Yeah,
ponds.
yeah.
For both, yes.
We're
But we
losing
need,
our songbirds. We are losing them.
Absolutely.
We've lost about 25%, they say, in the last 5 years. We're losing them.
Well,
Like
go
at
out
this
in the
time of year,
next-
we're not hearing any, we should be hearing returning birds.
right now, we
Silent.
should be hearing them right
Should
now,
be.
and it's quiet.
It's
It's
awful.
Rachel Carlson's
Yeah,
Silent Spring
yeah.
going on right now.
So,
I'm serious. This is very serious. So we should be doing all we can to encourage.
I think so too.
I have to report something that's important environmentally, is that the eagle that lives in my yard dropped an eel on one of my dogs.
How big was it?
On purpose, most
Oh,
likely.
big eel?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right?
that's fine.
What kind of it? American?
American bald eagle.
Oh,
There's only
come
got a
by.
family of
Can we
them.
come by?
Wouldn't
If it
eat
was-
an eel out of
if
the
it was
Neponset
this-
River,
if
right?
No, no.
If it was this big, you'd get a lot of money for it.
Oh, really?
It was probably on purpose because the dogs bark, right?
Oh, the dogs, it's right, I think the
Right.
big guy just sits there and looks at them. The dogs, I got a ton of dogs, so they just kind of surround the tree. He just
Take
laughs
that.
at it. He drops skeletons of all kinds of little,
Yeah.
he does.
Coughs a lot.
Oh, that's very funny.
Let's go at the end of the sidewalk. and see what it is.
All right.
So I guess the next question is, how do we do a proposal, and does the Conservation Commission have the money, have the funds?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We have a revolving fund that we can spend up to, but not more than 15,000 for environmental purposes. But we've got some other funds as well.
Sure.
But the revolving fund is filled by fines that we've accumulated over the years. So we do have the capacity to do that if we think it's in the best interest of our charter to preserve and enhance the environment.
I definitely think we should do the whole shooting match.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Is there
Do
any,
a
so,
vote. I would motion to do the extensive study, including the bird nesting study.
I second it.
is there any discussion?
What's the follow-up?
The follow-up is we get recommendations, and then we'll see what the recommendations are to follow up. I'm sure the recommendations will include a survey of the area, so we know exactly where we are, so that the
But
debris...
doesn't this include the survey?
No, no,
It's a
no.
habitats or
It's more of a habitat study and what's there presently, what kind of stands of trees are there, et cetera, and where problems might be on your boundary lines, of course.
But wait a minute, that's the forestry survey, but what about the bird survey?
Similar.
we'll have management recommendations as to what species are present and
Present
how
and
we can
then
tailor the-
possible in the future with some forest management.
That entails which birds
In which areas?
we believe, or they believe should be there, and what it takes to get them there, and to sustain them after they're there.
Exactly.
So that we're not putting the cart before the horse. We get the horse and the cart in the right order.
Yeah. Typical forest
Because
management,
they usually do it the other way around. They oftentimes do it, I shouldn't say
Right.
usually the other way
do
around.
something and then say, oh, this is what we've got.
Right, and nothing shows up.
Right.
This does include waterfowl too, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, sure.
for the pond,
All right, so there's a
I'd
range,
just like to add one thing, and that is that we have a time frame in that plan.
Need to get it done by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30.
okay.
And what the phases are in that. Steve?
Right.
So the only difficulty in a vote would be that we can't vote a contingent amount. So we probably should vote the highest amount and then try to bargain them down. We don't have to spend it if we vote, but we need a specific amount to put in the motion.
Yes, so I would vote, let's see, 2,400 plus 1,400. $3,800.
38.
That's what I would put in the motion.
Wait, that does not include the bird
No,
component?
no. Bird plan will range, forest steward, that does not include hang on a second.
Yeah, it does.
I'm looking at the third paragraph. Bird plan, 1,400, forest, 1,200, okay, sorry,
So that's for
26,
Turner's.
26 plus 24, so that's
$4,000.
$4,000. Sorry about that.
Wait a minute, give me those numbers again?
And that's for both locations.
Yes,
So both Turner's Pond and Pope's Pond.
right. That's correct.
So that's 5,000 total.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Thank you,
So
Wendy.
just break it down for the bird survey for both ponds and the forest survey.
For both ponds, that's correct.
Okay, so give me the separate amounts.
For each pond, Pope's Pond, 2,400. The plan, let's see, 2,400, right?
And that's both bird and forest?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then for Turner's, 1,400 plus 1,200.
2,600.
26 for Turner's.
Right, so that's $5,000 even.
Okay.
Good.
Pretty interesting considering the size, the
Right,
relative size of the two.
Yeah,
That's- But
So I would,
All right, so is there a motion
The
to
motion.
expend that money for the purposes of a bird survey and a forest survey at both Pope's Pond and Turner's Pond? Seconded?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right, good.
Good. Shall I speak to somebody at Town Hall with regard to?
Yes, I think
creating a
Kathy's
contract?
pretty familiar with what you have to do to get approval to get into the funds, because we have to go to the town accountant.
Yes.
Because the accountant controls the actual fund itself.
Okay.
Okay? Beautiful. We're making progress.
And the next item I have is just, we're going to go on the 30th of March, some site meetings, and you'll get a list. We'll get you the list.
very good.
And I have one, very quickly. John mentioned the Shade Tree Advisory Committee and the discussion on Ridgewood Avenue, and it relates to what we're talking about most recently here. This is an article from the most recent edition of the Milton Times on the Shade Tree Advisory Committee. Some of you have probably seen it. And what I'd like to propose, and we don't have to take any action now, but I'd like you to think about and see whether or not we can start to discharge some of the trees that we have to the Shade Tree Advisory Committee so that they can use those in implementing what they have as their charge and responsibility. It doesn't make sense for us to warehouse more than we need when they need more than is available to
I
them.
agree. And the last time that they were in and gave a presentation to us, they had, I don't know, 43,000. That was a grant that was going to be sent through the DPW.
Something of that nature.
But I don't know that that ever happened.
I wondered about that as I read this article. It didn't.
there's been a
talk
number of
about it.
plantings throughout the town.
Maybe we should invite them back.
Yeah, I think so, because the DPW has their regular budget, and then there was a grant
Additional for the,
for this, and then they came to
Was it the grant
us.
for the trees, not for the installation? There was some twist.
Right, well, when they came to us and asked for money, they said, well, we don't know how much we want or what it will be used for, so
Right.
they were gonna go back and come back with a specific proposal to us.
Right.
But in the interim, I think they used that grant, but I don't know if there's any recordation or memorialization of what happened.
Yeah.
But
So-
Kathy would know that, because she kind of sits between the Conservation Commission and the DPW.
So we agreed in having them back?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. Of course, they're gonna be asking us for
Yes.
money, but,
Got on the list.
all right, so y'all coordinate with
Give
both
them
Kathy
virtual
and...
trees.
Yeah, right. All right, anything else? We're good to go. Motion to adjourn?
Indeed.
All in favor? We're done, thanks.
Okay.
Good meeting.